Swags, what's up, buddy?
What's going on? Here we are. Special duo stream.
Yeah, we're in the multiverse now. So for my channel, folks, this is going to be comic book heavy. So just be aware of that. We might dive into some other stuff, but this will mostly be comic chat. And
you just lost like 100 viewers instantly.
Well, I didn't have 100 to start with, so maybe not.
Okay, yeah. Then we'll rope them in with they'll still tune in and think that it's all card talk.
Yes, and we will probably fall behind on chat, but that'll be okay.
Yeah,
we'll just get the stipulations out there right now. So set expectations low.
Yeah. Well,
Mary, we've been talking about doing this for like a week.
Yeah. Well, hold on. But first, Merry belated Christmas.
Oh yes.
Merry belated Christmas to everyone in the chat. Like Rob said, we're doing a dual stream here, over on Rob's channel. If you guys don't know about Neo, I mean, you guys have been on my channel like a bunch of times by now. Yeah. So, but go sub him up. But yeah, we thought it'd be cool to do a hangout, do a Q&A. It's like the end of the year. This is definitely going to be my last stream of 2023.
I'll have one more for sure tomorrow night.
Okay.
Yeah, my regularly every other Wednesday off center with Dustin and Steve is tomorrow night. But we talked about this doing later in the week, and then Swags DM'd me earlier, and he's like, I kind of want a live stream. And I'm like, yeah, me too. Let's just do it.
Yeah, let's just do it. Got no work, now my family's now out of town. So what else am I going to do?
Oh, you got your bachelor pad this week.
Yeah. Your family came in town and did the whole thing. And then, family all left and traveling and stuff. So I'm holding it down, the fort.
Nice. Did you, why we kind of let chat filter in, did you get any collectible related gifts under the old tree?
No, nothing like that.
Not even necessarily not necessarily books, but just like anything side related.
No, not so much. Not so much.
Okay. Yeah. I got BCW graded comic bins.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's good.
And I got this is kind of in our realm. I got the I don't know if you follow MySlabs stuff, the Hasbro Kickstarter stuff. I got the Hiss tank. They have like a huge Hiss tank that's like I have the Slave 1 back there on the wall.
Oh, nice.
But it's like twice as big as that thing.
Yeah.
Like the HasLab Sentinel too. It's in that same realm, but it's the big old Hiss tank from my wife got that for me, kickstarted it for me, and she's like, whatever holiday it arrives around, it'll be a gift for that.
Yeah. It's like whichever thing this lines up. Maybe it'll be your birthday present. I don't know.
Oh no, someone picked up a 340, and that's on your thumbnail saying all comics are ruined.
Well, it's an interesting, conversation starter, something to talk about, for everyone out there. We kind of went shoot from the hip stream here, general Q&A, talk about topics and market and things. We can get into CGC if we want to talk about that. But, it's a really funny thing because, Sindane has nerves of steel, but a lot of other people I've been seeing, talk about some of these, the books and stuff. And there was a lot of discussion about other Hulk 181s. And I saw another, funny enough, another post on a consignment page of someone who had a Secret Wars 898 newsstand Mark Jeweler that got listed. And then, of course, everyone questioned if this was like an authentic book. And the seller was like, no, it really is. And then the people had to vouch for him. And it just puts a little bit of a stain on all these, keys that have been in question, which is unfortunate because no, it doesn't tarnish the books, but you have to wonder, right? I mean, Rob, are you going to buy any Hulk 181s anytime soon?
I already have mine, so no. But I'm still, my video tomorrow is a look ahead to what I'm looking for 2024. And one of the big ones still on the list is an X-Men 1. And I don't this hasn't changed my thought process on going off a CGC Blue Label X-Men 1. Now, part of that could be that I'm looking at like a 1.5 to a 3.0 range.
Yeah.
And I don't know that that's the type of book maybe in an X-Men one, because even the price point on something like that is $4,000 or $5,000. So if you swapped out like a purple label or a restored or something, there'd be some profit margin there.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
that doesn't seem to be the target market of this, whatever you want to call it. So
yeah. At least as far as we can tell, that doesn't seem to be the book. Or it doesn't seem to be the types of books that have been caught up in this. But I suppose the same trick could be used. You might just have to have a little more of a watchful eye on what you decide to pick up.
Yeah, and I think that's really the biggest takeaway is, I mean, I don't know. I guess that's a question for you. Has this affected the way, and I don't know that you've looked to buy anything since this all happened, since the last week to 10 days. Is this going to change your buying habits at all, or patterns, or your process before you actually hit send on PayPal?
I mean, I'm not really in the market for some of the books that had been wrapped up in this, like say it was like a Mark Jewelers or like, those types of bronze or copper keys, or, I don't have a Hulk 181 right now. I'd love to have a Hulk 181, but I probably wasn't going to get one anytime soon. So in a way, it does make me a little bit cautious. It wouldn't change truly like my buying behavior if I found the right deal and I was buying from somebody who I felt I could trust, or someone I've bought from before, or, even if I was going to make a purchase on like heritage auctions or something like that, like, cause I know that there's checks and balances in there. I'm sure that if you buy from heritage, there's some, liability that they will cover within this whole process as well. So, it does and it doesn't, but I would say that it mostly doesn't. What about you?
I think the only thing that it's going to affect me, because like I don't plan on stopping to buy comic book. This isn't like, I did a video earlier this week that was more geared towards the sports card side of things, but I wrapped CGC into it. Like I am not going to let these companies dictate my enjoyment of this space, whether it's cards or comics.
Yeah, that was a really good video. I thought that was really good.
I'm not going to let whatever's going on with CGC like diminish the stuff that I already have or the thrill of the hunt for the stuff that I still want. That being said, am I going to double check a cert number on maybe a 2K plus book? Yeah, I might check that GPA history, or in the past I wouldn't, know? So I think that's going to be my biggest thing, even if it's not one on this list, because to the point we just discussed with the X-Men one, we don't really know how deep this goes. We're assuming it's limited to like those Copper Age keys and Mark Jewelers, but we don't know that this hasn't been going on forever, or that someone else hasn't tried this on other books. So if I'm spending, I don't know, let's say more than $1,000 or $2,000 on something already graded, I might spend an extra, I don't know what that would be, 3 minutes researching a cert number, 5 minutes. Like I think that's really the biggest buying change for me.
100%. I feel like this is one of those situations where, man, if you were someone who never was willing to pay for a paid grading or what do you call it, a pricing guide, I'd say at the very least, I think this should maybe you can open up your wallet for $5 a month or $9 a month or whatever, one of these ones, just so that you can kind of do that, like you said, that extra 2 minutes of research or that extra 3 minutes of research to see what you're actually buying. Because if you're spending in that $2,000 range, I mean, it's at that point, what is an extra $9 worth? Yeah.
Dio here asks, has CGC reached out about all this yet? To the best of my knowledge, and Swags and I actually talked a couple hours ago, there's been nothing that I have seen, and I guess I'll ask you, what do you expect? Do you think we hear from them? Do you think they kind of just let this blow over and hope that people kind of stop talking about it? Like, where are you kind of at with what not necessarily what you want to see, but what you expect to see?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to take away what you told me when we were talking about this off air, and I'm just going to regurgitate what you said, which is, I think 100% we're not going to hear anything from them. I think they're going to just sort of wait until everything has calmed down and we're in 2024. And then some months later, 3 months from now or 4 months from now or something, we're going to hear the announcement of good news, everyone. You know, our reholder program has been re-upped to ensure more security, or, you know, something like that. And it'll be masked under this like improvements in the company, but it's not going to refer back to why those improvements were made. I think
all of a sudden we have the cert number on the interwell and on the slip. What do you know? Like,
yeah, 100%.
Look at this new thing, or this new technology that we're rolling out.
Yeah. And I would say, throw back to you, maybe you could talk about this. Like, I think what we said as well, where the reason it's really going to be that is because, you know, how much of the comic community do you think is actually aware of this in a percentage basis?
Yeah. And that we talk about this on the sports card side all the time too, where we think in our little bubble that this is the biggest deal ever. And in reality, it very well might be. This might be the biggest scandal ever to hit CGC. I know there was one a long time ago that some people will say was bigger than this, or whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
And we frankly might not even know the full depths of how deep this one goes for a while, even with the internet detectives doing their thing. But in the grand scheme of things, I think we overrate how much of the collecting community actually participates in the online collecting community. Like, what percentage of people attending Heroes Con that are there to actively buy comic books, what percentage of those people consume comic book YouTube? What percentage of them hang out on Instagram? What percentage are trolling the CGC boards? And then what percentage are doing all three of those things? In reality, it's probably a lot lower than we all want to admit.
I would genuinely be shocked if more than 5 to 10% of the comic community use social media. Like 10% would be like, all right. And I'm gonna say 10% includes Facebook groups, Instagram, and YouTube.
And as crazy as it is, actually, probably Facebook would probably be number one.
Oh,
if you look at like some of the buy sell trade groups, or like the CGC group, they have like hundreds of thousands of members. There's no one in the comic book space that has that many YouTube subscribers.
Totally.
Or IG followers, probably.
Yeah, I think both age demographic and just like what seems to be empirically true with like how big those groups are, like that's clearly the number one social media for most collectors, you know, using Facebook. And then I would say, I don't know, maybe it's a coin toss between Instagram and YouTube. Because YouTube's a little bit easier of a barrier to entry. You know, anyone can just sort of watch YouTube, whereas Instagram, you have to make a profile. So maybe Instagram's even smaller.
And so that leads into the point of all that is the reason that they are probably not going to address this publicly, as in like a social media post, a post on Facebook, is more people would see it that way. Like if they address it publicly, if they put a thing up on their website, then it's a different ball. More people would get exposed to it than even know about it. They are making people aware of it, even though they may have a moral obligation to do so. From a PR standpoint, it might not make sense. And I told Swagglehaus, my viewers will know this. Fanatics has had some pretty significant issues the last few months with, I'll just leave it as nonsense to not get too far into the weeds. And what they did was really smart. They responded extremely quickly. And they basically released a statement through the person that broke the story. So it stayed in the same social circle. The person that broke the story of the fraud that was going on also broke the response to the fraud from the company. So it all filtered through the same audience that the original bad story did. It never went beyond the bubble. So the people that were hearing about it, that were pissed off about it, got their resolution. They might not like it or not, but at least they got like a comment on the record. And the people outside that bubble, they're oblivious anyway. So it doesn't even matter to them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because it's, you know, I would take that though. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I would still take that.
Like, can we get a CGC board post at bare minimum?
Yeah. And shout out to 99 and West Coast Avengers, who I saw in the chat earlier, but you know, when I was streaming with them talking about it, I was like, okay, yeah, at the very least, like, why not do an Instagram live on 99's Instagram? You know, like that could be where you you just say, hey guys, we caught it. Here's what happened, blah, blah, blah. You know, and if that's as public as they want to go with it, like, cool, that's fine. Like at least I'd rather take that than nothing.
Yeah, like even DM a McCann response that says like, here's our official comment on this. Feel free to share this.
Yeah.
Or something if they don't want to get on camera because they're worried about someone saying something incorrect.
Totally.
Just to circle back to James's comment real quick here. I mean, just circle back to what we talked about a few minutes ago. Like, don't let this nonsense interfere with whatever it is that sparks joy for you. Whether it's CGC, Tops, Fanatics, whether it's Marvel putting out a bad movie or a bad TV show, that no matter what they do, I could go back and read the Dark Phoenix saga till I'm blue in the face, and it's still going to give me relaxation / enjoyment. I could go flip through my Gwen PC collection or my X-Men books, and what Marvel does or CGC does or any influencer or YouTube video or whatever does, don't let them steal. Life sucks enough. Like, don't let outside factors take those things away from you.
Yeah. And just, you know, and just, and don't let anyone else take it away from you either. Like even outside of those things. You know, if you got a Avengers 8 that you love right now and you want to post it and share your Avengers 8, like, yeah, you might get a comment that's like, Jonathan Majors is guilty, you know, or Kang sucks or something like that. But if you enjoy it, you enjoy it, you know, just tune that stuff out, you know? So that's what I try to do. And I'm sure Rob can speak to it. I think we get a lot of comments. So, you know, just tune out the
we're used to filtering things out mentally. It's kind of comes with business. You have to, otherwise
I'm used to just
it'd be literally impossible to do this.
Yeah.
If you don't either have thick skin or the ability to just kind of let things roll off your back sometimes, or the ability to type out the really mean response and then delete it before you actually hit enter.
Oh, that's a good one. Just type it out and then don't actually hit
that gives you the release of I really told that guy off. I just can't post that publicly.
Oh yeah. It was good. Good therapeutic exercise.
Has there been any, like, there's been kind of talk about, you know, are they swapping labels? Are they swapping interwells? Is it all of the above? We really don't know the true magic trick behind this yet, correct? I have not spent, like, you would, at this point in time, you would almost need a second winter vacation to stay current on that CGC thread.
Oh my God.
So more power to anyone that's actually like actively refreshing that thing hour by hour. But at this point, there's some speculation, but we really don't know how this has been done per se.
Yeah. I've in my times that I talked about it, I say swapping the book, but I don't actually know. It could just as easily be swapping the label. In fact, it probably would be easier just to swap the label. And some people have talked about that on the boards and done the detective work, and who really knows how they're doing it. But yes, maybe swapping the label is like the easiest thing to do.
Oh, I didn't see this. I didn't know that CGC had a template email when people message customer service.
Oh, so is it like an automated response?
Probably. I've mentioned this on my videos. I actually emailed CGC media relations directly a few days ago, actually, like when 9.9 first broke this. And shout out Manu in chat. And I have not gotten a response. Like, I sent like a very formal like request for comment, like a real journalist. Right. And have not gotten any responses on it, which as we discussed, I'm not surprised. I think at minimum, they probably sat down and said, okay, we could use the holidays as a bare minimum excuse and say like that could be their backwards answer if they wait till the first of the year. Hey, we wanted to look into this and dig into it before we said anything. And it was over the holidays, blah, 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 blah. And people would be like, oh, okay, I'll cut you a little slack because it happened over Christmas. So maybe they're just like taking the temperature of the water like every couple days and saying like, okay, do we need to say something? Do we not need to say something? And, you know, we've talked offline about this a couple times. Like, I don't want to say responsibility as a content creator, but like, when does us making clickbait thumbnails about this become overkill? But also, do we have some sort of responsibility to kind of stay on their back, for lack of a better term?
Yeah.
And where's that line? Like, when do you be like, we're just talking about this to like farm clicks and views, and this is legitimately, I need to stay on top of them and remind people that this is going on so we don't forget, because we all know what happens. whatever, a nonsense thing pops up. It's the biggest story in the world. And then 2 weeks later, the next nonsense thing pops up and everyone forgets that the thing 2 weeks ago even happened. This is a little more serious than that, but I think the general point still stands.
It's definitely more serious than that, but you know what it is, like how these things go, right? Like it's this could very easily fall under that same pattern of, you know, come a week and a half from now, it's going to be like, what were we all discussing last week again? I don't know. Anyways, oh, I'm going to buy this Near Mutants 98 now, you know? So it's just like people forget. And yeah, I genuinely do struggle with it. You know, we've talked about it, you know, like how much to talk about it versus how much not to talk about it, and how, you know, how vitriolic and stuff, you know, I don't want to be like clickbaity and stuff like this, but I want it to be like something that we can talk about and be productive about the discussions and keep a little bit of, you know, foot on the gas and try to get some answers. But I don't know. I think I'm just trying to mix it up as best as I can, you know, just have other content mixed with a lot. I felt like we just do a live stream and hang out and stuff. We don't even have to spend the whole time talking about CGC. It's just really about like,
but we both know where chat's going to take us.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, we can totally talk about it if that's what people want to talk about, you know?
Yeah. Internet guy says, and on super chat, I believe to you, milk it. It's a big story.
It's a legit big story. Milk it. Yeah. I mean, it is a legit big story. And it probably is something like, you know, I think in any media, anything, right? Like whether you watch the news or sports or whatever, if we all watched the Super Bowl, you know, it would be talked about for the 2 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl and then endlessly talked about for the 3 weeks after the Super Bowl, because it's that big of a story. And that's what people do, because people are interested in talking about it. So there's probably some parallels in this.
And I think people will continue to find more stuff as well. So that'll kind of churn it back to the top a little bit if a new big book gets discovered or something else. Or heaven forbid someone finds someone else that was doing this. Because now, I think you said earlier, you know, like every Hulk 181 publicly posted on the internet everywhere is like being deep dove on.
100%. I mean, that was like the purpose of like the thumbnail that I made. Like, speaking of those CGC boards, like if you just go into that thread, which, like you said, now has like, I don't know, could be at 200 pages now. It's like every other page is a new 181 under the microscope, you know, whether it's one that's currently up for sale or a lot of green label. Yeah, a lot of green label Hulk 181s that are like being analyzed and then doing side-by-side comparisons. So like a book like that, like for sure just gets, at least right now, you know, and the thumbnail and jest of like, is this book tarnished? And what I just mean by that is like, man, that sucks. If you're someone who has one and you're just selling it right now, like, are you feeling a little bit like sheepish in putting yours up for sale and feeling bad about it? Or like, you know, if you're somebody who wanted to buy it, are you like a little hesitant to buy one right now because of all the stuff going on? And so it's just really interesting how these certain books have been put under this microscope and spotlight, and how much it's been analyzed up, you know, every which way.
Yeah. You know, in some regards, this might be the safest time ever to buy a 181. Like,
you know, that's actually true. You know, there was one just before we started the stream. I mentioned to you there was a Hulk 181 that sold on Heritage tonight, and it's the lowest sale in 3 years for its grade. Now, if anyone is familiar with my index video and I talk about like where I think books should pull back to, it probably sold within the price range it should sell in based on that correction. But at the same time, there's a pretty sizable drop from the previous one. So, you know, if you take out one buyer, then, you know,
on those big books, one less bidder.
Yeah. Yeah. But to the last point you said, whoever got it got a good deal, you know?
Yeah. Or maybe they didn't.
Hopefully it's the blue label though. Hopefully it's actually a blue book.
Scary stuff out there. Well, I am sure, you know, CGC, part of the problem is that they don't really have any great competition. Like, yeah, CBCS exists, but we all know they're not really a real threat. But I assume, Swags, that they have jumped all over this with an aggressive marketing campaign.
Oh my God.
In last week to take advantage of this massive blunder. And I'm sure they must have what, like 50, 60 Instagram reels and posts about how secure their new holder is, right? Right?
You would think, but they did not capitalize on this. You know, CBCS, I'm rooting for them. I think it's great if you have a lot of grading companies out there trying to provide the best value and best service to everybody, because competition makes the companies perform better. And yeah, I would like to see CBCS like try to use this as an opportunity, at least to come out and take some position. I mean, if they want to at least talk about their cases being, you know, untamperable, or a lot of people talk about how they really love CBCS because they feel like the CBCS cases are a lot more firm. They're much harder to crack open. And so in theory, I guess you could say it would be much harder to pull off this type of thing with a CBCS case. And you would think that they would maybe want to wear that on their sleeve. You know, I made the joke about how this certainly took a lot of time off of CGC's holiday, you know, when they had to deal with this thing. But, you know, I made the joke, you know, offline that I was like, you know, this should take a lot of time off of CBCS's holiday, because they should be figuring out like, guys, you know, all hands on deck, marketing, like, let's go, you know, let's get everything out. Content pieces, Instagram posts, Twitter posts, clever quips, think of everything.
Yeah. The problem is that CBCS, for those that don't know, is a Beckett company. They are owned by Beckett. And those of my viewers on the sports card side of things will know that they are probably not well positioned to take advantage of this at all. I don't know what do you know what CBCS turnaround times look like right now? Like, are they good, bad, indifferent?
Well, they're great. CGC, shout out to CGC's turnaround times. They are really, really fast.
CBCS.
Oh, CBCS. I don't know. I can't. Maybe someone in chat knows if.
If chat knows, go ahead and post it down at the bottom. I'll see it here in a little bit. But just based off what I know from Beckett on the card side of things, they are not well equipped. They are not an agile company, and they are probably not even equipped that if they got a 20% increase in submissions, it would probably kill them. If I was willing to bet on it, at least on the card side, and I assume comics are not that far off. Just to answer a real quick question here: CGC holders are not UV protected.
No.
I don't believe CBCSs are. We actually funny question, because Swags and I were talking about that very thing. Earlier this afternoon.
But it seems like if you're a grading company out there and you want to differentiate yourself, that might be a good thing to explore.
Yes, for sure. And it does kind of suck. Like, I shouldn't say that it sucks, because it is nice that like there is one dominant player, but you guys just on your side of things, there's definitely a lack of competition. Because who would even be? I don't even know. Is EGS 3? I really don't even know. Like, who is the third? Is there? I know that there's a third that exists, but like, I'm sure they probably grade like 500 books a month. I don't even know. Like,
I guess PGX is definitely third
PGX.
place.
I forgot about PGX.
But I don't know anyone that is like a fan of PGX, and I don't want to like it's a low hanging fruit to like make fun of PGX as being like, you know, the redheaded stepchild of grading and things like that. But I've never really used PGX. I've never bought a PGX. I've never cracked one out, although I've heard a lot of horror stories about it and people seem to not like it. But I would call them third. And then I would say EGS has been a new player in town, and they're fourth. And, you know, I mean, shout out to EGS. I think Tony is trying to do at least interesting things with doing like a lot of custom stuff. So,
yeah. To talk about this comment, why hasn't anyone put the guy's name out there yet? People know who this person is, I assume. I don't. But there are legal ramifications for releasing.
Yeah, it's illegal to dox them like that.
Yeah. And in all honesty, like that is not, as a content creator, that is well beyond the line of where our role is here. Like, it is not our job to be judge, jury, and executioner. Like,
totally.
Our job is to present the information and then let actual real judges and juries, in this case, legitimately, like, the community doesn't need to go after this person, like, personally. The legal system absolutely will, because this guy actually committed legit fraud, or woman, I don't know. This person has committed what appears, I should say, is very legitimate fraud. And if that is the case, the legal aspects of this will take its due course. We might not be happy with the time frame on that, but that's the reason no one's going to put this guy on blast, because you are asking to have your own set of legal problems on your hands if you did.
Yeah. Yeah. YouTube's a really funny space where, we talked about this before, where it's like, are we journalists? Like what are we here? And yeah, definitely fake journalists. I'm just a guy showing off comic books, and all of a sudden it's like breaking stories and things. But I think for sure there's definitely a responsibility, or anytime there's been controversies, it's always like there'll be people, it's like, you need to name names, Swag. And it's like, I don't think it's my place to be naming names in certain situations like this. I think that would be irresponsible if I did.
West Coast Avengers is on board with us on that, typing out nasty responses and never actually hitting enter. We've all been there. There.
You don't have to have a YouTube channel to do that. Anyone who's on Facebook or has ever been in a conversation on social media knows exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah. Let's talk about this as I kind of dig for another chat comment. One of the other interesting aspects of our little pre-stream this afternoon was we dug into what the CGC guarantee actually means. And I don't know, Swags, doesn't really mean a whole lot, does it?
It is funny to really dig into the weeds and the fine print of what CGC does guarantee as being a certified guarantee company. And it's not necessarily what you would think. I mean, they do guarantee something, but it was a little bit surprising, I think, to actually look at that information and really uncover. And I say uncover, and that feels like I'm saying, oh, it's a big surprise, but it's like, no, it's been in their fine print this whole time. And when you actually look at it, I don't know, maybe it's a good reminder for everybody to know the difference of what they guarantee versus what they don't guarantee. And
and CGC's is really unique because they guarantee one thing on cards, but not on comics. Like,
depending on the collectible. Specific. Yeah, depending on what they grade, depending on the collectible, there's different guarantees. And I don't know if you happen to have it anywhere, or if you remember what that fine print was, but it'd be interesting to talk about it.
I do. I could pull it up really quick. So it is, and let me blow this up a little bit. This will be a little hard to see, but it is right here. So for cards, it specifically states the collectible has not been overgraded, meaning it has not been grading higher than their standards. So if this was a comic book, like a Hulk 181 that was graded a 9.0 blue label that was actually an 8.5 with a missing value stamp, would fall into that category. Correct. However, this little clause is very specific to cards. And when you look at comics, what they actually guarantee is
there's only two.
It's been inspected by two people, and then it is authentic. So that is indeed a Hulk 181. Beyond that, I don't know. And two of our people looked at it. That's it. And then there's some stuff in here about signature series for autographs and stuff.
Yeah. It is. I find that so interesting. Yeah. In the
your full video breakdown on this one, but yeah.
Yikes. Yeah. But just to emphasize, I mean, in their guarantee of their company, two people are going to look at it and they guarantee that it is authentic of a collectible. So they will guarantee that it is a 181 and that is it. So they don't necessarily stand by the grade. They don't necessarily stand by if it's a blue, green, or purple label. And that's really all they guarantee. Now, I'm not here to say that this is like, oh, some scandal. It's like, no. This has just always been what they guarantee on the website. But I think a lot of people would not think that was the case.
Yeah. We talked about percentages of people knowing things. What percentage of people that own a CGC blue label do you think knows what their guarantee is?
Oh, it's so small. I would think if you polled 100 collectors on the street and you just asked them, if they thought that they're guaranteeing their grade, I would think that 90 to 95% of the people would think that would be a safe bet. If we were playing Family Feud and it was like survey says, that you would think that would be one of the top ones on the bell ringing, guarantees grade, ding.
So, and this kind of plays into this comment here about people knowing that they've been scammed or not. So we were talking earlier on the off stream. PSA, obviously on the card side of things, they don't grade comics. They have a full guarantee, and it's very well known in the sports card world. Like if you ask that same question to people at like a big sports card show, 90% of people would be like, yeah, PSA stands behind their grades.
Yeah.
So if something is found to be fraudulent, there are two things that PSA will do, which I was actually asking Swags about this earlier because I didn't know how CGC handled this. One is PSA, if a card is called into question on maybe it was trimmed, not authentic, whatever, and that was found out to be the case, they actually deactivate the certification number. So when you look up that cert number, it pulls up the page and it says, this has been decertified. Please contact PSA for more information about this item or some such verbiage there. And then they also have a buyback guarantee that if a card that you have in their holder is no longer what it says it is, they will buy it back at current market value. Now, you'll probably have to fight with them a little bit to get that. You have to send the collectible in it. They have a team that reviews it. But I have known people that have gone through this on $10,000 plus items. And I don't know the exact result because they make you sign an NDA, but they were perfectly happy with the end result. It took them a little bit to get there, but they were not upset. They weren't throwing a hissy fit about it when it was all said and done, which is more that can be said, at least what CGC has in writing. And the question that I asked earlier offline was, the Hulk 181, the 9.0 that has been kind of like, Automatic Comics' focus point, and kind of the one that really blew this thing up to next level beyond Manu's original Mark Jewelers one, is that cert number is still active on CGC's website. If I pull it up, it looks like a completely illegitimate comic. Now, to their defense, play devil's advocate, for them to deactivate a cert number, they definitely need to do like 1,000% due diligence on that thing as best as possible. But at minimum, we talked earlier about the response that we expect to see. The response I would like to see is whatever books were reholdered from this individual really should be, I don't even care if they necessarily want to make it public, but those books should at least have the certification number deactivated. And when you look that cert up, there should be something to say, reach out to this specific email for further instructions on how we want to handle this. Even if they don't want to come out and announce a formal buyback program or, hey, here's all the books that were listed that were part of this. If you look up a cert number and it was involved in this for a reholder from this individual, it should be deactivated, and they should have some sort of method to reach out and then figure out how they want to handle it from there. Like, that's at bare minimum. I don't care what their guarantee says on their website. For us to have faith in them, I think that's what we at least need to see. Even if they don't want to make it fully public, I get that. It'd be nice, but I live in the real world, so I try to be at least, I don't want to say sympathetic, but I try to see both sides.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, that's what I would like to see as well. And I'm willing to accept, like, if they don't want to say anything about it or whatever, do it a little bit like more private. That's totally fine. I would just hope that that's what they would want to do. Because again, like, I know that there's a subset of people out there that don't like collectible grading companies. And this has sort of become like a watershed moment for people who are anti-grading to, like, use this as like, okay, this is our time to ride against them. I don't feel that way. I think it's better if the grading companies are trusted and doing good things and stuff. So I don't want to see them fail. So I would hope that they would just want to, in the spirit of the hobby and to protect their company, they would want to make it right. But I do want to ask, if that was the case where they decertify the numbers, do you think if you're somebody who has one of those collectibles, like, where does that leave you? Like, how would you as an individual what would you need to do with your collectible? Are you just sort of like, I just have this like graded comic that the certain number doesn't work anymore? Like, is there some sort of, is that okay? Like, you just have like this weird thing, or should that person talk to CGC and try to turn in their thing and get it, funny enough, reholdered to another cert identification? Like, where do you think
if they did deactivate them?
Yeah, if they did deactivate it, is the responsibility on the collector who has that to
I think it almost has to be, because how does CGC know where that book ended up?
Well, and this is where they have to put out some sort of.
They don't, though, because PSA doesn't. When PSA deactivates a certain number, it just gets deactivated.
Oh, they don't tell anybody.
No, there's no like public declaration of like new cert numbers deactivated.
Interesting. Okay.
I mean, ultimately, before we transact a book, it's our responsibility to look up that cert number. It really is. It's not, you know, the seller should be doing it. Como, I see in the back. I'll get you in a second. You know, it's ultimately our responsibility before we hit pay on something to double check that cert number.
Right.
So
that's true.
You know, and if you have a book that you think is in question, I don't know, maybe once a month refresh it. Though I can tell you right now, I have that Hulk 181 in question on that tab is not getting closed anytime soon from the old Google Chrome.
Yeah,
I'll refresh that about once a week just to see if it happens to disappear.
Yeah. It's not. It doesn't seem like it's going to go anywhere. But it'll be interesting if it does.
Yes.
Hey.
What's up?
How's it going? How is everybody tonight?
Good. You're a little bit quiet.
You're a little quiet, Drew.
Okay.
Yeah.
New setup, so appreciate it.
Yeah, look at Drew with his new camera setup. Got the wall back there.
Yeah, you look good. You sound a little quiet.
How we doing now?
About the same.
Stronger?
Yeah, still quiet.
Well, we'll just do it the old-fashioned way. How's that?
Yeah, bingo.
There it is.
Cool.
Good.
Tried changing the software. Let's do it with the hardware.
Hey, sometimes that's what it takes.
Sounds like you guys got right into it.
We did.
For a good 40 minutes already.
Yeah, I've been watching. Kind of running around doing some stuff, but I looked at the CGC thread. It's 142 pages right now.
Nice.
Which is way more than I care to catch up.
Praise the person who's like, you know, they've been traveling for the holidays and they're like, oh, what's going on in good old CGC boards? And they're just page one, you know, they go through the whole thing.
Like if you went to Hawaii for the holiday, you might be able to get through all of it in one flight.
Yeah.
Or the moderator that's job is to like actually keep that semi-sane. Like,
yeah.
Drew,
can you talk?
You're doing Lord's work.
Can you talk a little bit about the video that you made on this and the stuff you talk about? Because one thing I thought that was interesting is since I've done my videos, like I hadn't talked about really the more books found and where it all kind of left off in the history. Can you, like, in case people are in the chat and don't know, like, can you recap that?
At the time I did my video, there were 4 books that had pretty well for sure been identified as being afflicted. There was the original ASM 252. There was a New Mutants 98. I think it was a Mark's Jeweler as well. And then there was a CGC 9.0 Wolverine, or Hulk 181, first Wolverine, second Wolverine. Let's not go on that tangent. I already saw some of that in the chat.
Oh why is everyone freaking out over a second appearance?
Yeah, you know, no big deal. And then when I made my video, the last book that had come up was a second Hulk 181 that was a 8.5, I think, at that point. So, and that kind of seemed to be the point where the panic set in. It's like, oh my God, you know, is my 181 legit? Are all 181 suspect? And it's like, as soon as that drop of blood hit the water, the panic set in. So
then it was kind of like, because it was kind of uncovered that it's like, oh, like this person's been selling for many years. This goes back pretty far.
Right. Yeah.
And not to say that not to say that they're there, but it could be many, many, many comics.
Could be. Yeah. The history of the seller went as far back to, I think, 2011, and he'd sold under 2 different names in that time. Around 2015, 2016, he changed his name to what it was when all this blew up. But prior to that, he'd sold under a different name, and thank God for copy and paste, because he used the same tagline in every single listing across all of those years, which is how you can pretty well say for sure that, you know, this guy is the same as this guy here. So it was a very distinct little tagline that he used, and that's part of the reason why we can safely say within reason that that's him. But it seemed, at least with his current stuff that he had listed, you know, most of it was I think you've talked about this, Mickey, was the modern stuff. There was, that J. Scott Campbell variant, lots of Mark Jeweler stuff, tons and tons of ASM 300s in the history. So just, the stuff that it's pretty easy to hide in just because of the volume of sales, volume of books that are out there.
Yeah.
So.
Question from chat, and this is kind of an interesting one. I don't know if I don't know personally. Do you know, like, do we think the big marketplaces, they have to be aware of this, right? And do we think that they're side-eyeing this stuff? Like, oh, I got some Mark Jeweler stuff coming up in the new listing. Maybe I should have someone in the office just take a quick little double check at these, because the last thing, and we don't even have to attach a name to it. The last thing any of these big auction houses want, Heritage, Comic Link, Golden, whoever, PWCC, is to be the one that has the next one on everyone's YouTube thumbnail of so-and-so auction house is running a bad book. Look, here's Automatic's breakdown of all the different covers.
Yeah.
Yep.
Response to this. So I don't know if they're doing anything, these companies. I will say that Heritage, speaking of Automatic, remember there was that one Suspense 3, there was a Golden Age book that caught some shenanigan stuff, married cover, whatever, and slipped through the CGC, and Heritage was selling it as a blue label, but then they pulled the listing. So my guess would be that if Heritage came across, like, say, a phony Mark Jeweler in their sale, they might pull that listing, but I don't think that they're not going to, like, make a PR statement about it. They're just, all of a sudden that listing is just going to get withdrawn from the auction. I don't know if Comic Link and Comic Connect do the same thing, but I mean, I think that's one of the interesting things of this. Again, like, I'm not anti-grading, pro raw. Like, I'm just in the middle with it. But there's obviously a lot of people that, there's a whole ecosystem built on CGC sales and the value that it adds to collectibles. So yeah, I understand there's going to be people who don't really want to talk about it, and I'm sure the auction houses, I mean, they auction houses, they sell so much stuff, man. Like, they have way bigger fish to fry, until their hands are forced with it. But I don't know if you guys have thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of am in the same boat. Ultimately, I think if something's brought to their attention where there's, some reasonable level of doubt about a specific book or whatever, to Mickey's point, they'll just pull it. They're going to run 7 figures on most of these auctions, with or without a single modern age lot. Even if it costs them, 4 low 5 figures, that's no skin off their back. It's a drop in the bucket. So they'd rather just, disappear it until they can confirm yay or nay that it's good, and just move on. That's my take on it.
I don't want to hear complaints about CGC graders notes, because on the sports card side of things, we get nothing. We just get the grade, and you have no idea why. So the fact that you guys even get something every time I have a sports card grading person on, like, one of my questions is always when are we going to get some form of graders notes beyond, like, subgrades? So I get that graders notes can be frustrating, but you guys have it way better than we do.
Yeah.
Here's Jeff in chat. I don't want to necessarily divulge any specifics on him, but he definitely would be well aware that PSA guarantee can be very, very useful at times for large sums of money. So
yeah,
oh wow,
that does come in very handy. But it was that to me was one of. I wish I would have been recording your face when you pulled up the CGC guarantee on the website and started reading it. Because your eyes, you were like, wait, is that what it says? Am I reading this right?
There's only 2.
Link, read this right now. This doesn't make sense.
There's only 2 prompts. That's it. There's only 2 bullet points.
Not a lot of fine print on that one.
Yeah. What do you think? Why do you think PSA took that stance with their grading? Like, seems like, and look, at least CGC has 2 prompts. I don't know what CBCS's guarantees are. If they have any guarantees or whatever. We couldn't find anything. So, but so at least they have 2. But, like, why do you think PSA has taken that stance to, like, ensure their number?
I don't know the real reason. I could tell you it's great marketing for them now because they're the only ones. So, well, CGC card. This is where it gets funny. CGC cards has similar verbiage to what PSAs does.
Yeah, right.
PSAs is very clear about buying back at current market value. A lot of the grading companies will tell you, we'll take care of the customer. Peter from SGC, nicest guy in the world. He'll tell you he's blue in the face. They will take care of the customer. I've heard plenty of stories of them taking care of the customer. Last I looked, and it could have changed, but at least like 6 months ago, that was not actually in writing. Like it was not spelled out on their website saying this is what they will do. Like I said, maybe it's been updated since, but at one point in time, Peter would say, I will stand behind it. Beckett will say, oh, we'll take care of the customer, but it's not in writing anymore. So what does that actually mean? Like at least, listen, we hate PSA for a lot of different reasons, but at least they have it laid out in black and white exactly what will happen if something is called into question and we agree that it was questionable authenticity. We will buy the collectible back from you and at current market value.
Right.
So that could hurt you, that could benefit you, but it is at least better than nothing. And like I said, I know they stand behind it because beyond Jeff, I have heard plenty of cases of people having collectibles bought back because stuff does happen. Like as much as we all want to put whatever grading company you want on a pedestal, ultimately these are humans making subject calls on this stuff.
Right.
Some of them are AI assisted, on the sports card side, AI is creeping in a little bit more. I don't know how much comic books is using it. I don't know that we will ever see, or I shouldn't say ever. I don't think in the short term we will see like fully AI grading anything. I think a human will still always be involved in some shape or form, at least on cards. And I feel like comics is probably slower to the uptake on AI because of the nature of a comic book, but I don't know.
Yeah. It's super interesting.
Yeah, it seems like everybody assumes that AI is being used at some level, but nobody knows what or how. So they could just be speculating or, maybe that's our quality control.
I think on the card side, they use it a lot for identification to quickly verify what the card is. And also the nature of cards, they use it a lot, I believe, for centering, or they're experimenting with using it for centering on the card. Because you could put hard parameters in of what how a card should be centered. On comic books, there's no real, you've seen 9/8 with a wrap off, it's a different medium. So
yeah.
Swags, do you want to? How much we had talked about this 181 that sold like literally 10 minutes before we went live? How big of a drop was it? Was an 8.5, right?
There was a 7.5 that I just noticed. It was a Heritage auction tonight, 7.5, and it sold for 3,800, which is $900 less than the previous sale.
When was the previous? How long ago? Like months?
Like a week ago.
Oh, like a week ago. Okay.
And then and the prior sale to that, it sold like $1,100 or $1,200 less, which was like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, something like that. So it's interesting because does it like with all this going on, does it take one buyer off of the, off the table because that buyer's just a little bit unsure right now, so it's kind of an interesting thing to see.
Yeah. And we're in that where people will spin the narrative however they want. So like any book that sells for 10 or 20% less, the crowd that wants it to be that way will be like, oh, told you, look, no one trusts CGC anymore. They're all going down. When in reality, this could just be that it's a day after Christmas and people are trying to pay for Christmas gifts. And that's the reason why it went 10% lower than the previous sale. It could have nothing to do with any of this, or it could have everything to do with it. We don't know.
Totally.
And we'll never know. It's just good talking for videos. That's for sure.
Yeah. It's interesting. I got something for you. Or both you guys. So Rob, you just had that video where you did like kind of the year look back, and you're like, okay, what are the videos that got the most views this year? And there seems to be a pattern, right? Where it's anytime it's Fanatics doing something weird, some kind of institution, CGC or whatever it is the case, those are always like the biggest things. I thought that was a great idea. I was like, oh, maybe I should do that, with my thing, and a little bit of a preview if I end up doing that. My top viewed videos this year are definitely not just say what happened with CGC now, but like when Bryce Comics had his CGC thing with Gabriel Delato, or when there was another one with the Frank Miller doing a CGC signing, and his art and talking about, how many signings they were doing. And here in the chat, shout out to everyone in the chat. Like, I mean, there's a lot of people in the chat right now.
Yeah, 331.
Yeah, there's a
Oh,
lot
wow.
of people, so what does that kind of say? What do you think that says when you look back on your year of doing content and your top videos are whenever it's like the big money institution stuff, right?
I mean, it doesn't have to be that. Anything drama, and we've all played
Sure.
this game enough. Anything with a little bit of drama, a little bit of spice, a little bit of shenanigans.
But it's when it's drama with a big
that boosts
company.
it for sure.
Yeah,
because I think what it does is, I mean, to really get in the weeds, it basically drives engagement because people want to yell at these companies anyway, and they want any excuse to go at them, good, bad, or indifferent, mostly bad and indifferent.
right.
So it's an outlet for them to go after them. So all like those videos get way more comments than a regular video does, and the YouTube algo feeds that, and the click-through rate's higher, and there's a reason why. And this is on cards and comic side both. The channels that, and there's nothing wrong with this, that just focus on collecting and building runs and building sets and like these in the weeds things, that their views never really blow up. There's a certain audience for that. It is what it is. If you delve into the news, the drama, the whatever the hot button issue thing is, it's gonna pop off. I mean, all of us know that have created content. We probably know before the video goes live, this is probably going to be in my top 3 of my last 10.
Oh yeah,
just based off of
with the content. Yeah, for sure. You can tell.
At this point, we all know our audiences well enough to know, like, this video is probably going to get its normal whatever views that a normal video gets, a couple thousand or whatever. I pretty much know this one's going to pop off to some degree or another. Maybe it's going to get 5,000. Maybe it's going to get, I don't know. Have you sat down and looked like collectively across like you, Automatic, West Coast, me, Dustin, and whoever else has done on this? It's got to be at least, I mean, your videos alone have been 10, 12,000. Ryan's got over 12,000.
Oh yeah. I think
between those 4 videos alone, that's 40 or 50,000 views on this.
And you, Drew, had that experience, right? Like your coverage of it was like, all of a sudden it's like,
is that your most popular
my best video of the year for sure?
Yeah,
hands down. I'm just refreshing. Yeah, 15,000 views on it.
Yeah,
which I mean, it's not uncommon for my videos, like my bigger videos, to wind up there. But that's months. That's people diving into the library to have a video that's 5 days old and has 15,000 is pretty nuts for me.
Yeah, you make like the evergreen stuff that slowly builds up, but then this is like a media blitz,
Swags and I go for the hit it and quit it.
Yeah, this was, and I mean, Mickey can attest. Like, I'm usually like, I'm leaving views on the table, but I don't want to get into this. I don't want to get into that. And this time I was just like, the hell with it. I'm sticking my toe in, and you understand why people feed on this stuff, because it's just it blows up and it's crazy. And ultimately, I mean, nobody likes to make content and you and your mom watch it. That's no fun. It's pretty awesome when people actually tune in and watch stuff, and it's been crazy. Like, I'm still trying to catch up on comments and stuff, but it's been nuts. It's hard to even keep up with all the content that's out on it, because it was just like, this video and that video was just constantly popping up.
There's definitely something interesting in there. And I guess like kind of even when I was trying to set up the question, it's like what would you say that is in the culture, right? There's definitely like a nerve that always gets struck with what the companies do and how they react and stuff. And I just wonder how deep it is, in there, like with shout out to Automatic here.
Yeah.
Thank you for
good
all
old
the
double steak.
Content. Get that steak on me. We appreciate you, Ryan. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I will not spell it. I will not spend it all at the same mass race.
Sorry, I didn't mean to derail you, Mickey.
No, it's okay. Yeah, there's just an interesting chord that always gets struck with people in there, and like, Drew, you've been dealing for like how long? 10 years, would you say?
Yeah, a decade.
Doing comic shows and things like that. What's your feeling? Like CGC slabs at shows, people just over the decade, it's been more and more.
Yeah, definitely more and more. And it's, that's the thing I've tried to explain to some people, even in the comments. It's like CGC and then the other grading companies all came about for a reason. You know, it was a service that was needed because when people started buying not just comics, but really expensive comics off of eBay, I've heard stories from incomplete books that were so brittle, like a page literally would break in half as you're trying to turn it. That was a Green Lantern 1. So, you know, that's a pretty expensive break. But there was a reason why it came about, and it was that people wanted to know they were getting, or wanted to know what they were getting ultimately when they were buying things online. So, you know, eBay was really starting to kind of rock and roll by late 90s, early 2000s. It's not a coincidence that that's when CGC came out, because they were providing this service so that dealers, sellers and buyers were both backed up. You know, seller sells it as this. How do you protect yourself from bad feedback? You know, this is not my opinion of the grade. This is a third party. And then the buyer knows what they're getting because, okay, that's what somebody says it actually is.
Yeah.
What's changed is that there's people who that's all they wanted to collect. You know,
right.
Slab books were kind of an oddity. I don't think I even saw one until 05, 06. Of course, you know, I'm out here in the Midwest, so everything's 3 years late. You know, we just, Miami Vice just went off the TV here a few weeks ago. But it's one of those things that they got way bigger. And then when CBCS came on, you know, there was that whole, you know, schism, for lack of a better term. And you got the CGC purists, you got the people who were fine with going to CBCS. So then you had people who didn't want to buy raw books, they want to buy graded books, but then you had a further subsect that didn't want to buy CBCS books, they just want to buy CGC books. And it's just, it's just a natural progression, I guess, as, you know, they came from being just an oddity to kind of overtaking the hobby in a way, because, I mean, I see people who won't buy anything other than a CGC 9.8. It's like, well, good luck if you ever try to collect anything that's, you know, older than the Bronze Age. But I feel like this may be what brings the pendulum back into the middle, where you may see a return to raw books. You know, the obsession with slabs may start to diminish a little bit after this.
Yeah. I mean, we definitely had that like this past year. It felt like raw books were way more, you know, interesting. There was a point where like more people were buying raw than slab. I mean, and I guess that's fairly obvious if you're assuming that the raw book price is, even if it only is the CGC price, but that much less, like why wouldn't you just buy that? But it does provide a service. You know, I've repeated this story like a bunch of times in my videos, where at some point, you know, not too long ago, a week ago, 2 weeks ago on Reddit, there was like a person who bought like a ASM 14 and it was slabbed it, but like their post was like free from the tomb of CGC.
Oh.
And they were like kind of flexing, like, oh, I cracked it out, blah, blah, my new pickup. And then someone in the chat was like, if you were going to free it from the tomb, why did you buy it? Why did you buy a graded one? And then
congratulations, you just devalued it by 20%.
Well, but the response was, well, I bought it online, so like I wanted to know I was getting the grade I was getting. So it's just funny because it's like we live in this world where it's like, at the very least, these companies are supposed to provide a value that is like in this e-commerce world we live in, the online buying world we live in. Like it's hard to tell what the raw grade is, so at least the number is there, even if you do want to just crack it out. So there's some value that it provides, but to your point, it became like the thing to get.
Yeah. And things got so crazy for a bit, like during the boom, you could sell a raw copy for the same price as a slab copy. So at that point, you know, it's just
at that point, you might as well.
We have been we've seen all sides of this thing in the last 3 years. It's just bonkers. So of course we're going to wind up here. You know, it was the only thing left that hadn't happened yet.
Yeah. You had that chat up, Rob. Did we respond to?
Yeah. Not really, but I mean, I think we kind of touched. I mean, ultimately, what this all comes down to, and you know, I guess the hot take here is, I think in the short term, you know, the raw for the win crowd will take this as their victory lap, but sad as it all sounds,
Yeah.
do we really think any of this is going to change much? Like, I
No.
don't, you know,
I don't. No.
I don't. Like, it's nice to see, like, you know, maybe for a little short little period here, but like Swags and I talked about earlier, CBCS is their only real competition, and they're not in a state to make a run at them anyway. Even with the door wide open, like, they're just not equipped to do it. They're just not a big enough of a company. They're not ran correctly. They have their own set of issues to deal with. So, and then there's the whole, like, I don't want to say the institution, but people have so much money invested in the CGC blue labels. I don't want to say it's too big to fail, but it almost feels like that sometimes, because I have these same conversations around PSA versus SGC versus Beckett versus CGC. Why do they sell for so much more? And it's just, it's the Nike versus an Adidas. Like, it's an Apple versus a Pixel. Like, you're paying for, as much as we all say, especially with this, buy the book, not the grade. People pay more for the piece of paper inside the plastic holder than they do for what's in the holder. And in this case, buy the book, not the grade doesn't even work, because you don't know that the value stamp's missing.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't judge that. If they swap a 9.0 green label for a 9.0 blue label, buy the book, not the grade doesn't even make it. Does nothing. You're screwed.
Raw and in person.
Yeah,
that's the only way to buy
right now.
This is where our argument for CGC pages come in. Buy the book, shop the damn thing up, slab every page. That way you know exactly what you're getting.
It's the only way to know you're getting a complete book.
I'll just find the Upper Deck comic cuts where they cut the panel out and put it inside a card.
Oh yeah. Oh my god.
Oh.
I think that just to that point though, you know, with the money being tied up, is, to me, it's like, I understand if there's people, it's like, you have so much value in like the integrity of this company. So like, you don't want this to be a thing that devalues them. And now CBCS is the new like industry standard or whatever it is. But on the flip side, it's like, again, it's like, I'm not raising the pitchfork at CGC. To me, it's just like, hey, let's figure this out. Let's clean it up, because, I want your brand to continue to be successful.
Yeah.
You know?
So what do we think that this commenter asked, like, what is the fix for this? And is it as simple as they put some sort of stamp on the inner well that matches the serial number, imprints it on there to the label? Like, is it legitimately as simple as that? Like, even if they don't want to put any money investing into a more secure slab, whatever the case might be, is it just as easy as saying, like, okay, the inner well has it's imprinted into the plastic, or it's inside the inner well, and maybe it's clear so it doesn't take away from the book, whatever they got to do to figure it out. But is it that simple? Is it really that easy of a fix?
So it seems like that's a solution that would be good. But I suppose if the person is swapping the label, then
the label would match the cert number on the inner well, so you would know that it got swapped.
Yeah.
Well, here's the problem to that.
It seems like
the same way. Sorry, Mickey.
No, go ahead.
It's just like counterfeiting money. You know, when you come up with new high-tech money or bills to, you know, protect against counterfeiting, what do? They go find the old bills, they bleach those, and they print on top of those. So you've got, you know, 10 years, 15 years of CGC slabs out there. If you can figure out how to crack those old wells and repurpose those, you just go a generation back and you can still subvert the new security.
Yeah, it's just adding.
Yeah. And
the scammers are always going to be a step ahead.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing. The scammers are going to scam.
Yes.
Yeah. It's about renewing
someone will always try to figure out a way to pull one over. But, you know, again, there's always people trying to hack into your bank account, and the bank has to figure out a way to anti-hack. So in theory, there should be a department at CGC, you know, where it's like, you know, you hire the Leonardo DiCaprio's character in Catch Me If You Can, you know, you start working for the FBI, like, you know, you hire the guy who is like the scammer guy so that you can prevent the scammer, you know?
Yeah.
I just pulled this up because I just enjoyed this comment. CGC's 2 bullet points. 2 people look at it and we check that it doesn't have photocopy.
That is one way to put it, Mike. Yeah, that is definitely what they guarantee.
I mean, and then, you know, for every rule, there's an exception. Then you have Gobbledygook 1, which literally is a photocopy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Drew, I think you'd be apt to. This is something we talked about earlier, and you may have heard this or not. So you are, for those that don't know from my channel, like you are a comic book dealer. You set up at shows. You're doing the whole thing.
Yes, sir.
What percentage of people walking a show floor do you think are aware that this even happened? And I know this is an impossible question.
Yeah. If it's 25%, I would say it's high. I would say you
were very close to what me and Swag said.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I see a lot of people that, you know, I've established a relationship over the years that, you know, they'll follow my content. So I may be not the best person to ask that, because, you know, a lot of people who shop with me see my videos and keep up with stuff that I do and things like that. And I'm lucky enough to have a fairly young community kind of in Missouri, whether it's St. Louis, Kansas City, or even here in the middle of the state, that, you know, they're fairly engaged online. So of course, I mean, I share my stuff in those areas as well. So we have a decent community like that. But I think overall, especially when you get into previous generations of collectors, yeah, no, unless they're on the CGC boards. And let's be honest, any thread that starts off with a YouTube video and goes to that length, they're just going to scroll right on past it and, you know, go hop in another thread.
Yeah.
So if it's, like I said, if it's 25%, I think that's a lot.
Yeah. All those get one over on you. You know, that still does happen quite a lot. You know, you just learn to buy certain dealers who, you know, are more thorough than others over time.
And I think that's the rose-colored glasses people like to view the hobby through. It's like, there have been people doing shady crap in the hobby for a long time. Yeah. Apparently with a 64 count package of Crayola and some cheesecloth, you can do some of the best color touch you can ever imagine on a Silver Age book. I think that was the original scam I heard, or one of the older scams I'd heard about over the years. But
well, one of the other scams, you know, and I've been learning about this, and people have been messaging me about, you know, I guess there was a scam 2008 with some micro trimming thing. And some of the old school guys in the collecting world have been telling me, like, man, if social media existed then, this would trump this wouldn't be close to that scandal. So I'll have to kind of dig through the annals of comic lore and learn about that whole thing and see if that's actually the case. But shout out to Rob. I didn't know if you saw Flexopotamus's super, but he put a little $5.
Oh, I see the super. I didn't see a question on it, so my bad.
Yeah. Just shout out to you, Flex. Thank you, appreciate that.
We have one after that too. Shout out to Chris. CBCS sounds like a pharmacy for Canadian broadcasting.
Oh my
god. He is right. You could do a Lord of the Rings length feature film on the PSA nonsense. I just kind of wanted to pull this up. CBCS will be taking money from now. Little to no price increases, new labels, and no drama. I don't know about the no drama. Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't they lose like a bulk submitter's entire submission like 4 months ago or over the summer? Wasn't that a thing?
That was a thing, yeah.
So that was a pretty big blunder.
Yeah, like they literally lost like it was a few hundred books, if my memory is correct. You guys might remember better than me. But yes, we would like competition in this space, but to say CBCS is drama free, that's a little rose-colored glasses, a little short-term memory there.
Yeah, and if they became the #1 company, I mean, I think that you'll very quickly see, like,
yes,
they would be under the spotlight, and then they would have all these things that get blown up and all this sort of stuff. And shout out here's a little preview of my talking point when I do my predictions for 2024 in the comic hobby. I'm going to talk about eBay Live as like one of the big predictors, and I'm going to say like all the issues that people have with Whatnot as like a selling platform. Once eBay Live is in the mix, oh man, you know how much drama we're going to get from eBay Live? It's going to be good video views, guys. It's going to be good video
the popcorn.
Views. Yeah. Get out the popcorn.
Here it is right here, except for the time the guy was taking books to his house to grade at CBCS.
Right.
So, yeah. They're definitely
Well,
not drama free at all.
let's be honest. There was like
way
a
worse.
12-month stretch where it was just CBCS and CGC going back and forth, holding each other's beer as they tried to just completely outdo each other with catastrophe or stupid move or you name it. It was just one after the other. So,
I do want to take I want to take a victory lap for Mickey and I, because I think it was 7 months ago we were on a pre-recorded video on my channel where we talked for like an hour, and at the end of it we had a whole conversation about, and it centered around the question basically was, do we really want to know, or do we just want to live in peace that my CGC 6.5 Hulk 181 back there is indeed a 6.5 blue label, and I don't really want to know what happens once it's inside that little encapsulation. But during that conversation, we talked about marrying copies of pages to books and how prevalent, and if we think that could be a thing. And then lo and behold, 7 months later, we find that this seller looks like they passed a married book through. And I have to imagine, I have nothing to back this up on. I bet you that is way more prevalent than anybody wants to know. And it is near impossible to catch, after the fact. It would be once it's slack, because you don't have the paper trail like you do on what's going on. This just happened to be right place, right time that he stumbled across that one. It's a needle in a haystack. Plus, a lot of these don't sell publicly online.
Well, this is one of the interesting things. And Derek and I think Automatic said it somewhere in the chat where it's like they're going to have to revamp the whole reholder program. As far as like going back to that question of like what's the fix going to be, like revamp the reholder program and regrade completely from that reholder program. But to what you're getting at, Neo, it does make you wonder, like, is there some kind of like Mark Jeweler marrying because they look for marrying pages when you can see that the page color is a little bit off or whatever. But like, what if this whole time Mark Jeweler, like, how are you going to know that this is not the right Mark Jeweler, in this newsstand copy?
And the worst kept secret in all of modern comics is people swapping the tattoo from an FF252 into an ASM 238. Like, that has been a well-known thing for years at this point. Right. I can say anecdotally, at least, that I do know somebody who submitted a Hulk 181 this summer that came back with a married 14th page or 10th page, whatever the value stamp is on. So that is something they are starting to look for, at least it seems like. I don't know if this one was just horribly misaligned and that's how they caught it, or if it is on their radar. But so hopefully that's something they step up more.
But that's the ultimate. Do you really want to know? Do I really want to? If my Hulk 181 got a blue label and a 6.5 and the page was married and they didn't catch it, like,
and look,
do I really want to know? Like, do I? Especially after reading CGC's guarantee on their website, I don't know that I do.
Yeah. And listen, we all know what it is, right? You're a grader, you're in there. How many books do you think that they look at a day? Like 1,000? Like, is that many? Let me just say, as someone who had my book and I was flipping through and fulfilling every single one and looking to make sure they're 9.8, I'm gonna tell you this, I'm gonna admit it. Yeah, I got a little lazy come 5 o'clock when I was like, it's good enough. It's a 9.8, like, are you really going to check for married pages on every single book? Everyone's human. So ignorance is bliss. We don't really want to know. Okay. Don't tell me if it's missing.
We just want our wall books. We want to turn around. We want to look at them. They all look nice. You know, we don't want to. I
can rest well knowing that every slab I have is the authentic comic and that it was looked at by 2 people.
No shenanigans.
Yeah.
No shenanigans.
That much I don't have to worry about.
Oh yeah, there's Automatic talking about the marriage. Automatic, you can feel free to jump in. I don't know if I assume you sent him the link. He probably is too busy for us peons. He's too busy looking at Hulk 181 covers. Over and over and
doing
over
the detective work over there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Drew, how many
Yes,
shows into the new year is it going to be that someone walks up to you and tries to use the CGC scam as a negotiating point against whatever price you do? You have your pre-canned response ready for that one?
My first show as of right now is the second weekend in March, so it's a little bit of a slow period.
Okay.
But yeah, I've already been mentally preparing myself for that, even though it's 2 months plus out at this point.
I got a good one for you, Drew.
Okay.
A lot of people have been talking about, like, I've seen in conversations, people are like, oh, well, this is why you got to buy from trusted sellers and you got to do the blah, 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 right? And it's sort of like, but if you're just selling a book that like, how would you know that your book is not the right thing? And what type of liability would you take on if, like, it turned out, hey, I bought a Hulk 181 from you, and then yours was the 9.0 book, and what would you do, and how would you deal with these things? Or,
I mean, I think back to that video Bry put out a couple weeks ago where he kind of had a similar situation. It's hard to say what you would do. I mean, ultimately, I'd probably wind up just taking the book back. I mean, ultimately somebody's going to get caught holding the bag. But you look at situations like, when you buy a collection of slabs, you're not going to sit there and get the magnifying glass out on every one and, get super, nose to nose with it. You're going to flip through, you're going to get your grades, you're going to check GPA, you're going to be like, okay, here's what I can offer. And, I think ultimately you've got to take care of your customer, even if that means you take it on the nose. Hopefully it wasn't like a single purchase. Like you just bought the one book and you can make up for some of that loss on some of the other stuff in the collection. But, I think that's all you really can do. And it's awful. I mean, yes, being a comic book dealer and, buying and selling funny books may seem like a super sexy and highly profitable business, but that ain't the case all the time. So especially if you're talking about 5-figure books that are misrepresented and aren't worth a fraction of what you think they are, in the long run, you can wind up in a pretty tough spot pretty quick.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's what you hope, buying from a reputable dealer, and that means that they're not going to sell you a lemon, but they'll at least make it right if you have an issue.
And I mean, we've all heard my AF-15 story from a reputable dealer.
Yes, sad story.
Yes. So reputable only means they haven't screwed you yet, or you haven't found out about it. In some instances, but the best thing you can do is just do your due diligence and hope that, you've built a good relationship and that somebody wouldn't knowingly take advantage of you. And that's about the best you can do.
Yeah, because
that would be an even more valuable book. Imagine taking the last page of a 180 and marrying it into a 181.
Then you'd have both.
Yeah, then you would have a truly
our powers
great
combined.
first appearance.
What else could you do that with? What would be the other big? Is there any other big
FF48 and 49?
Oh yeah. You do that with Gambits too, right? The 266 and the X-Men annual.
Yeah, but that'd be 5 extra pages,
Oh, that's fair.
That'd just be too much.
You just put it in an annual slab.
Yeah, you put it in. Yeah, you put it in the annual.
Fat ones.
Yeah, you do that with the ASM 299 and 300.
Yeah, Ryan and I are opposites. He's not here because he went to exercise, and I'm not here because I was eating dinner. So it balances out.
And Swags and I are here because we're not exercising. I think we'd rather sit around and talk.
Yeah.
We covered this earlier because it's illegal. Mentioned by name. It's not legal.
Yes.
Yeah, you can find out it's doxing. I'm not gonna. It's not. Yeah. Not
and as other people have mentioned in chat, if you really want to find it, you could probably find it.
It's not hard.
But to mention it publicly is a whole other bag of cats that I am not willing to, and I don't even know it, so I'm perfectly safe. So, and part of that is on purpose. I have not gone digging for it, so I don't accidentally say something stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
there's a very interesting with a bad memory.
There's a very interesting thing everyone talking about, like the married pages and like, oh, how to spot it and how to detect it and all this stuff. And on the flip side of it, it's really funny because I've watched some other channels, you know, shout out to Brian McClay and stuff, and them talking about some of these issues. And, you know, people were talking about like, oh, like it could have been done like this. It could have been done like this. You could have slipped out the label and done this. But then there's a responsibility of like, I probably shouldn't publicly show how you do it. You know, if you, there's that flip side of it of like, yeah, I can show you how to spot it, but then technically I'm also showing you how to do it. And there's like a double-edged sword there.
Yeah.
I don't play in raw books. Does this happen often where purples are cracked out and sold like as clean raw and then, you know, later to be found out? Like,
yeah, up to and including Amazing Fantasy 15s.
Oh, is that what happened? I don't know your story. So.
Tell the story.
Yes.
Tell the story.
So reputable dealer. And I say that I really like the guy's son who is more involved now, but swore on his mother's grave that the copy of AF-15 I was buying was not restored. And I've submitted it twice and it's came back restored each time. But yeah, he sold it as a cracked out for whatever reason, 2.0 blue. And yeah, no, it wasn't. On the back end, I learned that this guy apparently has a habit or had a habit of coming out into the Midwest to smaller shows and dumping things like that he needed to offload. But you live and learn. And after I had the book for year and a half before I got it graded, and he did offer to give me my money back for it after, that was right at like the point of delineation where AF-15 was expensive but attainable, and then oh my god, because even I'm not going to lose money on it. I never will lose money on the book, but it's got a hard ceiling now that's pretty low comparatively. But I wound up having Stanley sign it, so now it's a 2.5 restored signature series. It's still pretty cool though.
That's cool.
kind of sort of offset some of that.
Right, sucks less.
Yeah, but it is interesting because like you said earlier, Drew, it's not like there hasn't been shady stuff going on in raw comic book dealing for quite some time, and there's really funny things too with like, I think a lot of dealers crack out books that might be, lower grade or whatever and sell them raw because they can move it easier, and you can be sold under the guise of like, well, yeah, it's a near mint, and the book that I can think of all the time, X-Men 266, the Gambit one, that's a book that if you're not a 9.8, 9.6, maybe 9.4, like as soon as you get to a certain grade with that one, it is going to be 1,000 times easier to sell it raw than it would be in a slab. And so like, if you have like a 9.2, or a 9.0, you're better off just cracking it and saying, yeah, it's an near mint copy, and then selling it at whatever the fair market value is. So I think a lot of dealers do that stuff where they'll crack out those books and, sell it raw, and hopefully they're being transparent about what they're selling.
So that's always the tricky part. Like, once money gets involved, and we're not talking about tiddlywinks here, we're talking about in this most recent case, tens of thousands of dollars in some cases. And in that AF, and when you start playing around with AF-15s and stuff like that, that's a whole different, like, that's it's Honda Civic levels of money. I like to joke about all the time. When you get into stuff that expensive, I would like to say I'm caught up on chat, but that's kind of a lie because there's 332 of you in here, so we are not ignoring your questions / comments. So if there's something that you want pulled up, feel free to fire it up. Anywhere particular you want to go, Swags, at the moment?
I don't know. I mean, rounding out the year, end of 2023, where do we go from here? I think it's been a wild comic book year. I think a lot of predictions that I've heard you talk about, Drew, being a bin book year and all these things very much came to fruition.
Yeah.
I think Neo, you've had some predictions that definitely came true. So, in the card world and things like that. I think I've had some good predictions, and I'm excited of where 2024 is going to go, whether it be market talk stuff, grading talk, controversy stuff, where we go from here. Trying to put together my video for that, make myself look silly by making wrong predictions. But what's your guys' best sense? You got any thoughts going into the end of the year?
How close are we to your world renowned for the comic book index? How close are we cracking through like early 2020 pricing? Like how close are those lines getting to the reset point to maybe slipping beyond it?
So the biggest beginning elevation was December of 2020. So going from November to December, and we've basically, and then obviously into 2021 and the blow up that came after that. So right now we've basically kissed that December first jump price point. Maybe we dipped a little bit below it, but we're living between that November, December frame. So you would think that that's maybe where we're going to go. Cause that was like, okay, that was the instance that we had inflated values or started to get inflated values. So it stands to reason that whatever the values were before those inflated values was the organic floor level of the collector market. And I would make the argument that however many collectors existed there at that time where that was the floor level, like now we're back around that point. And I think there's probably more collectors collecting today than there were back then, because a lot of people have churned from 2021 and stuff, but there's probably a lot of people that have stayed. So I don't know. I can't predict the future. I think I'm looking for like 3 or 4 months in a row. If we go sideways for like another 3 or 4 months, I think I'll maybe start to make some like content about, hey, I like this book right now, which is content that I haven't made for a while.
Yeah. So you're saying if I'm in the market for an X-Men 1, maybe hold off till like Easter.
I think you definitely have until Easter. Honestly, I think with a lot of these books, unlike this whole last 3 years, you don't have to have that rush anymore to get it. Like it'll be there for you when you're ready to find the right copy or to pay the right price. There's just like the FOMO factor of like, oh, you got to get this one, otherwise you'll never have another chance is gone.
Because even if they bounce up, it feels like it's not going to be like, peak pandemic times, on the card side and the comic book side, you would just see like stuff like 2x overnight or like in a weekend.
Totally. Yeah.
It would be like, oh, ASM 300.98 was $4,000 and now it's $6,000 in like 2 days. What just happened?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not seeing that stuff anymore.
And that was one of the things, like, I think people forget, like what that was like. Cause now you look back and people are like, man, like people were such idiots paying all these prices and blah, blah, blah. But like at that time, people just thought like, hey, this is the last time I'm ever going to be able to buy X-Men 1 at this price. That's what it felt like at that time.
If I don't get it now, I'm going to be priced out. So I have
priced out forever, so, but you don't have to worry about it anymore, which is great.
Yeah. Drew, as the dealer side of this little conversation, like, what do you, at least for like the first half of the year, like your first show you said is in March. Like, what do you think that things are going to look like?
It's my big show of the year too. And,
which show is that, by the way? Just so everyone
it's Planet Comic-Con Kansas City. It's pretty much the biggest comic convention between Chicago, Denver, and Dallas. So unless you're at one of those 3 places, this is the biggest comic show you're going to find.
Is that like
Um,
Heroes Con level? That's what I always use for perspective. Is like
it's a significant 3-day comic convention. Yeah,
okay,
it's not like Heroes, whereas Heroes is straight up comic books. It does have celebrities and crafting and that kind of thing. But it's definitely not a pop culture
yeah,
Comic
it's not New
Con,
York
right?
City Comic Con or San Diego, obviously with Hall H's and
Yeah,
all that. But
no,
I just mean like in terms of like
nothing.
the cross mix of. Wait, is this an anime convention or am I at a comic convention?
They actually started their own anime convention, so I'm
Oh,
hoping that
okay.
kind of weans some of that stuff out. But it's fine. It's good for us. It's my most expensive show, but it's also my most highest sales show every year as well. But I suspect this year is going to be a lot like last year, where the repricing and the downward direction will continue. Just because I really only make one big repricing push a year throughout all my box stock. So that's what my next couple months is going to look like, just going through and getting through all those back issues.
Yeah. That was my favorite actually, because I remember even into like 2021 when that stuff was kind of
Mhm.
popping off, like there was a pretty sizable window where when I was going into LCSs, and I don't know if there were any comic shows at that time because maybe things were shut down, but I know I was at
Mhm.
least able to shop. A lot of pricing was behind,
Oh yeah,
you
well
know.
that's where the we reserve the right to check prices on eBay.
That's where it started
Stuff
to
started
to
popping
come out.
up
Yeah.
again.
But it'll be funny, like if you're in that position, Drew, where you price at one time and then
Hmm.
again, I'm not trying to cause FOMO. Who knows? We're probably going to zeros. Comics are worthless, guys. Don't buy anything.
That's
So,
right. We'll be
but
burning
but
them for heat.
but if there was a time when like, oh, things start to turn around and stuff, usually a lot of dealers and stores are like behind the eight ball a little bit, with that type of thing.
Yeah, it's just a question of how nimble are they, and most LCSs, have maybe a handful of people at most that work there, and it doesn't matter what the back issue market's doing, you're still going to get a shipment of DC books on Tuesday, you're going to get a shipment of Marvel and everything else on for Wednesday that you got to deal with every week, and that's not a 5-minute job if you've never worked in a comic store. But you have a very narrow window of time where you can really get in and hop into those things. And I mean, as a guy who used to work in a comic shop, some of the people that tend to work in comic shops don't make the most of every moment of downtime they have.
Yeah.
You know,
Wait,
lots of interesting Google searches and random conversations had, as opposed to repricing books.
Rob, where's sports cards right now? Where's the market? Is everyone
it's all going to
negative?
zero.
Is
We
everyone
talk about this all the
positive?
time.
What's that?
It's all going to zero.
Oh, it's all going to zero. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think the negativity is pretty high in the
Well, the
comic
drama
book.
on the sports card side right now is the Fanatics takeover. So really, the
Right.
story of 2024 is going to be we're in this weird middle space of Fanatics has baseball, Panini still has football and basketball, but their clock is ticking. Fanatics has exclusive license agreements, but they don't start for a couple of years. Panini's running out the clock on football and basketball. There's currently a legal battle over trying to attain those rights earlier.
Mhm.
And the thing that's going on now that's really weird is they're basically battling over exclusives. So like CJ Stroud, number 1 pick or number 2 pick, best rookie quarterback of this year, tearing things up for the Texans, is a top/Fanatics exclusive autograph signer. So Panini has the rights and the licenses to make CJ Stroud Houston Texans football cards, but they do not have the rights to have him autograph any of them. Topps has the rights for his autograph, but they can't put him in a Texans uniform. And unlicensed stuff is like the redheaded stepchild, like having the player, and we call it pajamas, because it'll just be like a blurred, photoshopped out, like for Stroud, a red and blue jersey, basically, is like looked at like a second class. It's like looked at like a CBCS or like a PGX slab. We're just like look
Give
at
me
it
an
like,
acetate cover over that any day.
yeah, exactly. It's a foil cover, basically. So that's where we're at. Mom and dad are fighting, and exclusives are the main course on the menu. And for the person that just wants to buy a CJ Stroud rookie auto, it really sucks for them because it really doesn't exist in its pure form. So everyone's kind of caught in the middle. We all know where this is probably going to end up. There's a big, as much as like everyone's like down with CGC this week, like you could do your little intro swaggle with down with CGC.
Oh yeah.
I could do one of those about Fanatics once a week. Like people trying to kick Fanatics, and Fanatics ruin this, and they're the evil devil. And in some cases they are. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But as in most things, there's some good with the bad. It's just people want to yell about the bad all the time. So that's really where we're at. Prices are still trying to figure themselves out. It's a little different than comics because we have an on-field aspect or on-court aspect of this that you guys don't have, though. I guess, Jonathan Majors might say differently. We Swag and I were joking earlier about, Kang can't tear an ACL, but Jonathan Majors can do some things that may not, that have drastically impacted his comic book price.
Kang is the very first sports injury equivalent in in the comic collectible world here.
So that's kind of where we're at. The other thing the other push-pull thing is that sports cards, Fanatics specifically, they're really leaning into the gambling-like nature of it through breaking. And on their Fanatics Live, like Fanatics has their own live selling platform. They're going after Whatnot and eBay Live. And they're really leaning into the, buy into a break for $100 and hit a $10,000 card type slot machine like nature of it. It's essentially what it is it's unregulated gambling. Everyone knows it.
Yeah.
It is what it is. So there's a lot of pushback on that. Those are kind of the big, and the other thing that a lot of people are mad about, myself included, like single prices keep going down, but to purchase a sealed box of cards and open it keeps getting more expensive. So it really doesn't make it doesn't logically. It's like, wait, what? The cards out of the box are getting cheaper, but the boxes are more expensive to open. And a lot of it is due to the breaking aspect of it, because a breaker can microtransact the box, so you could charge more for it. You take $1,000 box. It's not $1,000 box if you sell it 30 different ways. It makes it look cheaper when in reality it's not. But if you're just the guy that wants to buy the box and open it yourself, you're kind of getting squeezed.
Yeah.
So that's where the sports card world is. Fun times, happy times. We don't have any grading controversies right now. Give us about a month. I'm sure
you guys will catch up. Don't worry.
You guys have enough grading companies that are in the game over there where
I can find one any day of the week if I can go and blow out right now, which is your version or my version of CGC forums, and you can find something once a week on something if you wanted to.
Yeah.
But we had grading controversies all year long. This is really you guys catching up to us. In most cases, whatever drama we're dealing with, you guys will be dealing with in like 6 months.
Yeah.
That's typically how it works.
It's interesting how I was like in one of my videos where I was talking about like now what or something. I was like genuinely on all three comic fronts, which I consider the comic fronts to be like vintage collecting, current publishing, and then like the pop culture side, which I say is like MCU or whatever, right? Like between all three of these fronts in these last 2 weeks, you had like vintage comic collecting scandal, CGC. You had modern publishing. If you guys caught wind of the Comic Palace thing where he was talking about writers and them sucking and all that stuff. And then you have Jonathan Majors and MCU going down and all this stuff. And it's just crazy, like how all of these ones have imploded, like all at the same time. And
that's just like the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, just like the last 2 weeks, And so, but it's interesting going back to what you said, or what we referenced, forget who it was in the chat, where you were saying like, don't let all that other stuff that need to affect how you enjoy the hobby. Like there's correlation here, but they don't actually matter, to what you do on an individual comic collecting or card collecting basis.
Yeah. Keith brings up, it's going to be a buyer's market until Marvel and DC figure it out. Like, listen, Deadpool 3 could come out later this year and it could knock it out of the park. And then guess what? All your X-Men keys are going to the moon again, because that's for the future of Marvel seems like it's in the X-Men's hands.
Yeah.
And I am an X-Men homer, so cue up the pump and dump. But it really is like the Avengers thing seems to be over. People aren't a majority of people aren't vibing with whatever it is that they're currently doing, but we all know the X-Men are out there, mutants are out there, and however they handle this, if they land that plane, it could inject life into that segment of stuff. Anyway, I don't know that, you know, Avengers 8's going to recover, or, you know, the first appearance of Black Panther is way down, you know, FF.
Yeah.
I forget the issue off the top of my head, but
52.
that's way down from what it was as a proud owner of one and like a 6.5 that I'm about 50% underwater on. You know, I don't know that book's going to recover, but I don't know. Could a first appearance of the Sentinels go to the moon if they're the feature villain of a new mutant series or something?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, the things that I would say is, well, one, I think like the economy has most to do with values, right? In general.
Yeah. And none of us, and this is an election.
None of us can determine that.
I don't want to get into that, but like, that's
and again, I'm not an expert. I'm just going to parrot things that I consume and talk. But like, let's say there's a world where, yeah, if everything goes to zero next year, then hey, everything's going to zero. You know, if you get this soft landing people talk about, then hey, maybe there's going to be more money that people start spending on collectibles. So you don't know. But the one thing I will say, tabling that, the one thing I will say is you only have one movie coming out next year, and people love potential way more than the reality. And what I mean by that is, yeah, if Deadpool is good and people don't have some bad Morbius movie to ruin ASM 101 to them, like the potential of what's next can always carry, you know, a lot of buying behaviors. And I'll just say that. And then I also just add, you know, I think we've been doing the YouTube thing long enough now where like you can see like churn, you know, in the viewers of your channels. And I think this is true of like the hobby, like it just even in my own life, or I'm sure you guys have experienced in your lives, like, you know, you spend different times in your life where you're more or less into it. And there's always a new person, you know, coming back in that gets roped into the, oh man, you know, this could go to the moon. So the more things change, the more they stay the same. And we're going to get to a point where once again, it's going to be that cycle of spec. And I don't know, could be something in 2024.
I don't know that you never want to say you're at the bottom or whatever, but I at least feel semi-confident, unless we're burning them for warmth. I don't think if you buy a giant size X-Men 1 today or an ASM 129, that it's going to drop 50% like it has in the last 2 years.
I hope not.
I don't know that we're going to see drops like that. If we do, then, you know, we got a whole host of other problems.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it'll 50% from today's prices, that would put you at like what on the Swagglehaus comic market chart, like 2016 prices? Like, I don't even know.
You just buy all the way to zero, guys. That's what, you know, if it drops 50%, buy another copy. If it drops 50% again,
every dollar you spend on comic books, spend on 9mm. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like,
yeah, guns and butter. That's where you should be investing. Right now.
Guns, butter, and CGC slabs.
Just keep buying all the way to zero, boys.
Yeah. Drew, do you have any hot takes for the upcoming year? Or
you know, honestly, I kind of gave up trying to warn people after 2012, because I was the guy like 2010, 2011, like saying, guys, this stuff can't keep going up year after year. And I was just a decade early. So kind of missed the mark on that one. But no, I think there's going to be some lingering effects, because where the world's at right now, credit is expensive. That's not going to instantly be wiped away. You know, even if we land the plane, you're incrementally going to lower interest rates back down, but all that accumulated debt on your credit cards and those higher interest rates are going to hang around for a bit. So I think it's going to take us a while to get back to where the kind of expendable income that there was
Drew, yeah,
the last few years.
This is why I have to disagree, because, you know, comic book buyers are the most fiscally responsible people.
Yes, we all make sound decisions every time. But Yeah, no, I think that's what I see. I think the people who have the ability to get out there and make moves are going to be able to make some good moves. I saw a price, even on Grails today. I saw a price on a Hulk 1 that made me stop and like, wow, that's not too terrible. I think it was like a
Right.
2.5 for 15K, which, that book had been in parity with AF-15 for the last couple years. So that's a big pullback. JIM 83 is kind of the same way, and X-Men that we've already talked about. But I also feel like we're kind of at a point where the trend in value and speculation or hype about movies and multimedia properties have kind of divorced from each other to a certain extent, at least in the way they have been in the last 5 to 6 years, I would say.
Yeah.
It's more reminiscent to what it was like, I would say, back in like '08, 2010, 2012, where there'd be a little bump. We didn't go to the moon in 2 months, like we were there. X books, especially in late 20 and early 21. But I think it's going to be more of kind of riding the ship. And the last thing I'll say is I have kind of just a general theory. I haven't sat down and formalized it into a video yet, but that theory is Bronze Age is trash. So, don't put
Attacking
your
my soul. I grew up on that.
Bronze Age has let you down tremendously.
yeah, Bronze Age has broken my heart one too many times. But I guess my parting shot here on this conversation is the guy who owned the comic shop that I cut my teeth at and taught me how to grade and everything. One of my big comic book mentors. Somebody asked him what they should invest their money in, and just straight faced, as serious as he could be, said, invest your money in something that doesn't burn. That was it. Just like that.
Yeah.
And all this stuff burns.
Listen, when the
So you're saying that CGC needs to roll out flame retardant
That's right.
cases?
Yes. Asbestos wells.
when the Arctic winter comes, you'll be wishing you had stuff that burns.
I've got plenty.
Yeah. I do want to say with Derek's one thing you pulled up for a quick second with the 9.8 ASM 1 that's coming out. I haven't done a video previewing that auction, but it's in January. Maybe the most ridiculous auction lineup that we've seen. And it just the
I
most
wish it
unreal.
wasn't during the day.
Yeah, but I gotta say, I think we're gonna see big money.
Bloodbath.
No, big money.
Oh,
I think it's going to be like one of my predictions were in 2023 was like no more record prices or something like that, where I was going to say like, you're not going to have that headline of like Batman $1 million, whatever it was. I think that might change this year. I think we're going to get the headline.
Yeah. That ASM 1 is going to be a 7-figure book.
Oh, it's going to be unreal. And I think a lot of the other books.
One sold.
I can look it up.
There's how many are there? 2?
I think 2, yeah.
And so I don't know if it's been.
Has one ever publicly sold?
It must have been a decade at least.
I think it's been a long time. 1 second here.
And it's a pedigree, and it's and the last 9.6 set a massive record.
Yeah, there's no 9.8 reporting on GPA.
Yeah. So it
must have never publicly sold.
Never publicly sold.
Last 9.6.
It was
last 9.6 was July. It was $520,380.
Yeah.
How
So
many
it's
9.6 are there?
There's a handful, I think. Let me see here.
So this is a true like unicorn.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. There are 5 9.6s and 2 9.8s.
5 9.6. So 5 9.6 is 2 9.8s. Ryan said in the chat that this was a 9.6 that got cracked in pressed and CPR'd.
Okay,
So
so
that's kind of interesting.
Uh-oh.
Hey, imagine what did you guys think the adjustment on the price was when they sent it in as unlimited tier? They're like, we're giving you a 9.8, but we're charging you.
isn't the max like $4,500?
I was saying, is
Isn't
there
there
a
a
cap on that?
max?
Oh, is
I
it
think there's a
4,500?
max.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, something like that.
Gotcha. Well, they
That's
probably
interesting.
got the max on that
I
one.
didn't realize that was a 9.6 crackout. Yikes.
I didn't know that either, actually.
That's a video right there. People will lose their mind. Well,
Yeah.
you guys on the comic book side, you guys are more open to the whole crack press.
Yeah.
all that
I
sort
know someone who cracked a Daredevil 9.6 and got a 9.8 out of it and made a pretty penny with their bump. So, these things happen. If you got nerves of steel, and you want to take some chances on this stuff, like,
Yeah,
Hey,
you
all you
have the
need is,
testicular
like-
fortitude for that.
yeah, you
All
can
you
win
need
big
is-
if you do it.
On that stuff, all you need is one the bump, though, really, and it
Yeah.
everything else just came back the same grade. Even if you had a couple slip a grade,
Yeah. Well, it's
one
like
go
in
from
the
9.6 to 9.8.
in the Daredevil instance, I think like the 9.6 is like 30 grand or whatever, right? And then like 9.8 is whatever that is. It's like a 10x of that or 10x plus. So
Yeah, you could take a lot of shots on goal if you just get one the bump.
yeah.
Like,
So I think that auction is going to be interesting. I think there's going to be a lot of headlines that come out of it, a lot of big sales and big figures, and that could drive a lot of hype. So we'll see what happens with that.
to circle back to something you said a couple of minutes ago, Drew, about the Hulk on Grails or whatever it is. My favorite thing is Grails or Elite or any of the big IG sellers. When they post something I don't see very often, and I see the price, and I'm like, "That's that cheap now?" And I like run the DBA and look, and then you go and look, and you see that the book has been posted for like 9 hours, and no one said claim. That's when you're like,
yes,
oh, like, oh boy, because anything that gets posted on those pages that is remotely a good deal is gone within like sometimes 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Like
at the very least,
correct.
you need to see a bunch of comics that are like, damn, I wish I had the money.
a
damn.
bunch of people tagging people.
Yeah.
But when you see something pop up and your instant reaction is that feels cheap, and you like double check GPA and you're like, oh yeah, that's right in line with like current market prices, like maybe even a little under the 90-day, and there's crickets on the post. That makes me very nervous about.
Yeah, that should tell you something about the.
And what it is, it seems like a compelling price because, let's see, it looks like the 12-month average is 17,000, but you had 3Os averaging over 18,000 in the last 12 months, but it looks like the 90-day average on a 3O is under 17,000 at this point. So I would say they're trying to get ahead of the game because the last sale was at 15 and that was back in April. So if another one of these comes up, you're probably looking at, a couple grand drop off of that. So they're just trying to get ahead of that, I would assume.
Well, that's definitely one of the things, with people. I mean, if you are someone who buys and sells and trades and things like that, like if you want to deploy, Marie Kondo a few of your books to free up to chase something else, I mean, by all means do that. I think that's what a lot of people are doing or trying to do, which technically they could have been doing that as long as a year ago. But
yeah, I think it's a good time to make some moves if you've got the ability to, honestly. I mean, I know, Mickey, I've heard you make this comment regarding being the guy that sells at the top. It's also almost equally as rare to be the guy who buys at the absolute rock bottom price.
Oh yeah, you'll never be the guy.
Yeah, it's very rare you're ever going to be that guy on either end of it. So you just kind of gotta, crunch the numbers, and if it makes sense and the juice is worth the squeeze, pull the trigger.
Yeah. No, knowing all our lucks. Never the one guy,
No.
You're never the one guy.
And really, honestly, the person buying at the bottom probably isn't even the one buying online. They're the one paying cash to come over the show. You know what I mean? And you're not paying the sales tax, and you're maybe
Yep.
getting a little 5% off because you're not eating online selling fees, and we're meeting in the middle.
No BP. Yep.
You know, that's one of the interesting things too about comics in general is like, think of like how many people out there in the wild have overpaid by 30% and then underpaid by like 50%. You know, how big of this gap is there on a lot of these, you know, keys that are being sold out there? And this is why I'm not sponsored by these places, guys, but $9 pricing guide, totally worth it. Totally worth it.
We talked about that earlier. Like, it's worth the $5 or $6 to maybe spend an extra 2 minutes on these large purchases. This is a little different topic, but it falls into the same thing. For the amount of money that you have to put into it for this stuff, it's well worth it. And guess what? With the 1099 changes next year, depending on your thresholds, it's a tax write-off.
Heck yeah, it is.
It's a cheap one, but it's still a tax write-off. You know, those
it all adds up. You know?
Add up.
It all adds up. You know, you got to write off that steak money, that $5 super chat.
Is that a big deal on the card? People flip out about that. Like, do the comic guys lose their mind over those 1099 changes? Like, was that?
You know,
there were some people complaining about it.
Yeah, there were definitely people complaining about it. I think there's a lot of people who it's a very funny thing, right? Because you have some people who it's like they've always played by the rules, and so like that announcement to them is like, ha. Now, all you people that never played by the rules, this is my victory lap now. It's like, now you guys have to suffer. And then on the flip side, if you never do it, then like, you're like, how are they, you know, why are they doing this? Why are they attacking the middle, you know, the poor man? So
I was channeling my inner John McClane, telling a lot of people, welcome to the party, pal. Like, you know, some of us been out here doing this the whole time. Sorry that you weren't, but, you know.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Not financial advice, but it's better if you just do it. If you just do it, then it's like you run your business like a real business, and then you can actually.
Here's the only tip I'll give. Don't take your first thing should not be, let me run to the CGC Facebook group and ask how I should handle my 1099 reporting. Don't ask anyone online. Contact an official licensed CPA,
accountant, attorney,
person. Someone that has initials at the end of their degree that went to school for this, preferably. 100%. Don't ask random YouTube commenters, random Facebook commenters, because even if that person has what they do on point and they are 100% correct, guess what? Every person's situation is different.
Yeah.
What makes sense for Swags might not make sense for me, and probably doesn't make sense for Drew. Like,
and even where you're at, like Ohio versus Missouri versus California, completely different.
I'm just talking about on the federal level, it's going to be different on how you want to handle and how you want to write things off. And, you know, I'm
sure Swag would trade us tax rates any day of the week, though.
I'm moving to Nevada, guys. I'm moving to Nevada.
This has come up twice now.
It is.
LLC,
I just mentioned it in the chat for him. Just like, man, guys, you know, Nevada looks pretty sweet.
Oh, we got it right here. Swagglehaus told me.
Oh God, Derek.
I don't want to go too late. We're 2 hours in. We have not dropped below 300 people for pretty much the last 2 hours.
That's awesome, guys.
So we could close on this. We don't have to. Whatever. I got nothing but time. So CGC has left the door open. This is something Swags and I were talking about earlier offline. If a new competitor wanted to enter the space and say, now is the time to go after these guys, what would we ideally want to see? My first thing was UV shielded slab. Like, that just seems like you just starting from there would immediately, people would be like, I like what you're talking about already. Like, Drew, you're a dealer. What do you, if a new company just entered the space that, let's say, was a known company, like we know who this company is, maybe it's a side company, whatever the case might be, but they're not completely like brand new to the collectible space. Like, what are some things that you think are non-negotiable besides the obvious, like, you got to have slab security on lock and maybe the UV shielding? What else do you think is on that list?
I think the UV shielding is a good idea. I think one thing CBCS learned the hard way was you got to have a census out of the gate. I mean, yeah, it's embarrassing when you're first getting started. You have
Mm.
practically nothing on there. But that was a major gripe. But I think the main thing goes beyond even the physical aspect of your wells, your holder, however you want to put it. The main way somebody's going to be able to break through is they've got to find enough people in the market, in the hobby with influence that have the trust of the hobby to say that these grades are legit. Like your grading room has got to be rock solid, because if you are just hiring people off of the street that nobody knows, that have no trustworthiness, no name recognition, no gravitas in the community, then at that point you're just throwing a number on a piece of paper. Nobody's going to believe it. So I think that's the hard thing to really get, because I don't know who those people are. You know, it's the hobby is a lot bigger than what it used to be. But back in the day when CGC came out, the community was smaller. Everybody knew everybody's strengths. Like this person was known as a really good grader. This person was known as a really good grader. And guys would, you know, pass things around to different people. Like, what's your opinion on this? What's your opinion on that? I don't know where that is today. Like, you know, we all, you know, in the space, we're known for our opinions on this, our opinions on that. But I don't know that any of us could come up with a list of the top 5 graders in the community right now if we had to. I mean, you know, outside of like Borik's obvious, Matt Nelson's obvious, you know, like those kind of guys. But like our generation of collectors, I don't know who those people are. And I think that's the first thing you've got to figure out is, you know, how do you get buy-in from the community with a grading room of unknowns?
Yeah. I think what Comic Book Fanboy was saying was interesting. And to that point, Drew, I think a new grading company would have to be very clear on their mission statement and what they stand for and what they are. You know, are you just a like collectible display thing, or are you a company who is trying to certify, you know, comic books, you know, and what that mission statement is, you know? And then, yeah, if you don't have a figurehead who is like a nationally respected grader in the community, I mean, like, I think it would go a long way. I bet you gain a lot of favor if you said that our company's grading standard is going to go to the traditional overstreet price guide style of grading. Like that's going to be the Bible that we adopt, you know, and, you know, having that strong messaging, you know, having a company that says this is who we are, this is what we want to be, this is what we stand for. I think that's going to be really, really important for a company to actually cut through and make a splash. Because, yeah, it's outside of that, it's really just, you know, someone earlier in the chat said, like, why is CGC like the leading company versus like CBCS? And it's because they were just the first. So they've just become the one that is the one because they were just in it the longest. And like Drew, you were saying, like they had that trust because the community was smaller. So to come in now in like 2024, like you got to be really clear about like who you are and what you stand for and how you're going to grade and why that should be something that we care about.
I mean, Drew nailed it. You just got to get the evil influencers. You got to get us evil influencers pumping, dumping the next.
I'll shill whatever grading company wants to, you know, sponsor my YouTube channel, guys. Yeah, go get your book. I'm just kidding.
We'll see the next version of your book and whatever the new company slab is. They'll be giving you 10-Os.
I'm gonna
be the first 10.1 in comics history.
Yeah, you get the first 10.1 grade ever.
Yep, but extra credit on there.
For the very first time, 2024 new business venture is Swagglehaus Grading. Every book is a 10-0, guys. So send your books to me. I'll give you a 10-0, and you get to sell it for, you know, maximum value out there in the market. It'll be great. Everybody wins. We can't lose. It's foolproof.
Zach mentions Tag, which Tag is a startup grading company on the sports card side, and their whole shtick is full AI.
Yeah, that'd be a great position. Yeah.
They give you like a dig report. It's super detailed. The problem is it almost goes too far. And it's like, how much do we really want to know, like down to the pixel? You know, exactly every. My thought is if I can't see it with my eyes, do I care that there's some micro thing wrong with this thing? Like, if it doesn't, if I can't look at the book under even like, 2x magnification and not see what they're talking about, like, do I really care? Like, sometimes the AI, it sounds great, but I feel like it could go too far
Yeah.
past the point that we really want to need to worry ourselves with. And in fact, tag came out, they skipped the normal 10-point scale, like a PSA 10, 9, 8, whatever, and they went to 1,000-point scale. And now they're still offering that, but they're starting to push a 10-point scale because the 1,000-point scale is almost too in the weeds. Like, does it really matter that your copy of whatever collectible got a 957 and mine got a 952? Like, what are we really talking about here?
Yeah,
like, what are we doing?
For sure. It's interesting because it's like, what is the sample size? Because it's like, they'd have to scan, say, like 10,000 ASM 300s to really get a good idea of like, oh, okay, yeah, like to this, much of a pixel actually does look per pixel better than the other 9,000 I've seen. Therefore, this is a whatever their grading scale is.
You can get the CVA hollow stamp on it.
Yeah,
right there.
They'd have to really have a massive sample size to do that. Otherwise, like the AI grading should just be like whatever parameters they set, right, within reason. Of like, here's what you're looking for. I mean, I don't know. Well, I had Gene from the CEO of Shortbox on my channel doing an interview about that, and he's got a huge big tech background and does a Shortbox app and knows his tech and stuff. I talked to him about AI grading, and he said like the problem is like CGC could have done it if they knew to do it at least like 6 years ago or started 6 years ago or something, because like what you really need is like, you need to scan every single book you've ever graded so that you can have all these like data points and stuff for the AI to actually learn from. Here's what 9/8s are, here's what this, and cross-reference and stuff. So
you can build that database basically.
Yeah. I don't know how companies are going to build it without being able to get images. I suppose they could go through Heritage and take a look at every single graded high-res image that exists there. That would probably be what they would need to do. And then that could be the way that they learn. But then you're just using CGC's grading scale to teach your AI model.
And I feel like you would still need
and
to
cover grading
copy because of like you're not getting the imperfections of the surface off a high-res scan.
Yeah.
Per se.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing that's weird with comics. Like, are you scanning each individual page? How does that work? Like, I don't know that the two mediums cross over. And like cards, they're just a simpler piece of paper, and there's more defined standards. Like we talked about centering earlier on a card. It's very easy for AI to pick up if a card's centered or not. I would assume, I'm not an AI guy, versus trying to grade the surface of a comic book. Now, that being said, do I think AI could probably help on comic books for assists? Yes. But I still don't know. I'm sure one day we would get there where an AI can grade it completely from top to bottom. But I just feel like it's not. I don't know that we're that close. I think we want it to be that close, but I don't know that we actually are. And to the point earlier, I don't know that we actually want it. Like, do we really want it to be micro analyzing the stuff that we can't see? And then if you're adjusting it to basically grade like a human eye, then what are we really doing? I guess it would lock in consistency maybe, but even that gets weird. And what if you ever have to change the algorithm? Like, people say like, oh, once it's locked in, then you're good. But like, what if something changes and you have to adjust it a little bit behind the scenes, or it's always learning, so it might not grade the book the same 2 times in a row? Like, Tag's done some cool stuff in regards to people cracking out cards and then resending them back in and them grading within like a point or two on a 1,000-point scale the same, or them even identifying it and flagging it that it was a card that they already graded, which is kind of impressive. But I don't know that we need that fine. I don't know if we need to put that fine a point on it. I think like really, that's my question at that point is like, what are we really doing here?
Well, I think maybe like I think maybe you could be close to an AI assist. And really, this is like, I think something that modern comics would benefit the most from. Just if you're getting like new comics sent in for CGC pre-screens and all this stuff. Like that's probably the best use of, hey, quick scan, see if this is any good. I think the other stuff, grading a 181 or an X-Men one or Golden Age book is going to be hard for programming that.
Yeah. Any thoughts on AI, Drew?
I think it's
ready for our
interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's untold applications for it. And even if you could just I know we said pre-screen. I kind of feel like, even if you can just get it to kind of shoot it into buckets, like, hey, we scanned this. This is kind of where we think it is. We think this could be above 9.2. We think this is in the VF range, that kind of stuff, just to kind of give them a base to start from. Could be interesting. I don't really know how impactful it'll be long term for it, because I mean, we've seen the standard shift over the years, and I think when you do start changing your calculations like that, it could be real messy in a hurry. But I don't know. I think it's inevitable that it's going to come into play at some point, at some level. But I don't know if that's something that even the end user could use. Like maybe if somebody can get something like that together, that's something you could use for or provide for your customers to quickly assess raw books or something. Maybe it's not something you necessarily only use in the grading room. It's something you can make proprietary and actually monetize, just to kind of provide customers with raw books some sort of a baseline. Maybe it comes into play that way in the hobby. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens with it.
Yeah, Junk 90's comments basically that AI assisted won't solve anything, but it'll make the companies more profit margin.
Yeah.
We're gonna get more and more AI in comics. Maybe not in the grading space, but
that's a whole other hot button issue.
Yeah.
I haven't paid super close attention to the eBay Live stuff. It's definitely starting to skirt in the sports card sides more and more. I have to assume they're going to throttle this, right? Like they're not going to let thousands of people go live simultaneously. That just seems, I don't think it's going to be whatnot. They have a much more stringent vetting process.
Yeah, I don't know what
you're going to have quite the following to even have to be able to sniff getting on an eBay Live. I know sports cards right now, it is very restrictive, and you have to have quite a few boxes check marked before they let you on. And I don't know that I see that changing anytime soon, because you don't want it cannibalizing each other. And I would have to, I don't know, how many comic live sellers are there now on eBay? Is there a lot? Is it just a handful of people?
I've seen
no. Very select few.
Yeah.
It's very select few that they've basically been doing extended beta tests with these people. I don't know what the rollout or the plan is, if it's going to really be like Whatnot or Twitch where like anyone can just do it. I assume, I mean, that's probably what they want to do, like I would think. I don't know. You know what I'm most interested about eBay Live is, are they going to have it where live sale sold items will be a part of their sold listings?
Ooh.
And will that be incorporated into things like Go Collect and GPA?
I think they are.
Wow.
Because I've poked around some sports card sales. It's a little inconsistent, but I have 100% seen items sell live that then popped up on like 130 point as an eBay sold.
Okay, so
it takes a couple days.
That to me is the biggest game changer.
It wasn't everything. Like I keep like needing to go back and kind of look at some stuff, because I sold, the reason why I sold some items through eBay Live through ComC. ComC is an eBay Live seller, and you could submit cards and ComC auctions them off for you. Because ComC is an eBay Live selling platform.
Yeah.
So if you have cards on your ComC account, they have different submission events that you could submit cards through. and I know that some sold, and I saw them listed on 130 point. But I don't know if it's certain cards, certain things, certain items. I just have not had the time to sit and dig.
Yeah.
But at least some popped up on there. So it seems like that would then suck out and be incorporated in theory.
That's going to be a very, very interesting change in a shakeup. If eBay, like, imagine you were able to take all the whatnot sales and have that be incorporated into pricing guides. I would assume that would sway values dramatically in whatever directions. But it's very interesting too, because like, how do you protect for someone who's like, yeah, I'll just give you this $100 comic for $20. I don't give a shit. You know, excuse me.
Well, or the opposite. I'm sure you guys see this on the sports card side. There are certain sellers that get 20% more just because people want to buy from that person.
Oh yeah.
I mean, maybe you've seen this in your claim sale, Swaggle. Like,
yeah.
Oh, I mean, you price your stuff fairly, but like just in general, like, oh, you know what? I'm not even going to negotiate on that book. I could probably get it $20 cheaper off of him if I offered, but I really like the content that he puts out. As like a tip, I'll go ahead and pay full asking for this, even though I know that he has it listed for $550. I could offer $525 and he would say yes. I'll just go ahead and smack the bin, because you know what? Swags made me laugh 5 times last month on his little quirky intros down with somebody, you know? So there's that aspect of it. And then to your point, there is probably you know what? You've been commenting on videos for 5 years. I recognize your name. You comment all the time. You supported me forever. Here's this $100 book. Give me $50 for it. It's yours. Cool.
Yeah,
done deal.
totally.
I'll hook you up. So I guess you could say the law of averages over time, those two things would cancel each other out. And if you looked at the averages over a 90-day period, you probably wouldn't be able to see it. But as Drew probably knows better than the rest of us, everyone wants to show you whatever sold listing benefits them one way or the other.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And then it's a dance of, but what about this? But what about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good times.
Well, I take the last 3 sales because those have the 3 low sales in it, and you take the last 5 because the sale 4 and 5 were really high, and you know it's just
it's like the 2.0 sold for 200, but the 3.0 sold for 150, but the 1.8 sold for 220. You know, and it's like
when you get into the stuff that doesn't sell that often.
Yeah,
but
doing the dance is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I don't know how you'll control. I don't know how you'll control for like if a eBay live seller has like 20 people in the room and they do a $1 start versus like one that has 200 in the room and they do a $1 start, and like how you're going to really curate, you know, like of course a book is going to sell under if there's only 10 people watching. Like,
is this because in cards this is definitely a thing. Generally speaking, in cards, whatnot sales go higher, and it's just the nature of the beast. Like it's fast paced. You really don't have time to check comps on something. FOMO takes over, and you run with it. So in cards, you will have people literally just go out and spend thousands, tens of thousands of dollars buying up stuff at a show, and then just going home and selling it on whatnot that night. And it'll sell for like 10% over comps, and they just live off that 20% in the middle. Is that like a thing in comics? I guess I'll throw that at you, Drew, because you're a dealer, so you would probably know better. Like they just go up and buy like classic covers, keys, minor keys, things that
you don't even have to go home. Like I was at C2E2 last August when this whole acetate gate crap took off, and they were going to get them to sell at the show at the whatnot area, so they wouldn't even have to leave the sales floor or the show floor to do this. But I mean, it's people always go out and find stuff, and whether you go back to your hotel room or if you have one of the pop-up whatnot stages you can do sales on, it's as quickly as you want to turn things, you can turn things. They had was the house across the street from SDCC this year, so they couldn't actually be on the sales floor, but they rented a place right across the street from it, and we're bringing over exclusives from the show and selling right there. And it was like quite an event. They had all sorts of stuff going on. So, and you know, you may be paying double what it costs to buy it as an exclusive at the show, but you know, for saving the cost of a flight and $500 a night hotel room at San Diego during the show, you're coming out quite a bit ahead to just pay that extra double of retail or $100 extra or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
If you could do the volume.
Yeah, I think if you have the room, or excuse me, if you have the audience in your room, then yeah, to your point, Rob, like it's just sometimes things move so fast, and you don't have time to like find comps or look up on eBay if there's a cheaper one sitting right there. I'd buy it now. Like, so all those things in that buying format happen. And so I think there's a lot of people that can sell for more than what things go for. I've definitely seen it quite a lot. But maybe some people don't care, they just like buying from this whatnot seller or whatever they do. So.
All right, we've been going we're pushing 2.5 hours. I had a perfect question to end on. Here it is. Jeff, if you were king for the day, what is one immediate change you'd make to the comic hobby? I'll start to give you guys a second because I saw this earlier. Mine would be ban foil covers. Get rid of foil covers for ultra.
Just foil or all incentive variants?
I'm not a crazy person, and I like to collect Spider-Gwen, so I'm a sucker for an occasional Gwen variant. So I don't want to like kill myself too much, but I'll just stick with foils. Or like Swags and I said, like, why did to me the foils in the 90s looks better than the foils in 2023?
Oh.
Like, what are we doing? Have they not figured out modern foils? I don't.
Yeah, Drew. I don't know if you've seen some of these like the new foils that come out. Like they're like very muted. Like
very
they don't.
Dull. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I don't know what it is.
We had better chromium back in the 90s, I guess. It was probably toxic.
Better. We know. We were the generation of chrome nonsense. Like.
And die cut cutouts and all sorts of fun stuff.
Yeah. What do you think, Drew? Do you got one that?
I've got my answer. I would resurrect the indirect market, and there'd be a spinner rack in every grocery store and gas station in the country.
Oh, yeah.
Oh. That would be amazing. It'll never, ever happen, but, we're talking to the genie here, so this is what I want.
All right, let's see this one.
That, I don't know. That just doesn't look that good.
Yeah, some foil covers feel like they're not.
No, we're getting a lot of glare there, but
that's almost more just like a metallic cover. It's like straight.
It's like I call it a cold foil, like a TCG card.
Yeah, it's like a Magic the Gathering card.
Yeah, or like a exactly.
Like
but it's not foil, it's not the same type of foil that say like Venom Lethal Protector #1.
Yeah, right? Like that's amazing. Yeah. Don't get rid of those. Bring that back if you want to do random nonsense. Get rid of this cold foil nonsense and give me a Lethal Protector #1 with the sweet red on the back.
Yeah.
Or an Uncanny X-Men 300 with the holographic X's in the back.
So there you go.
Example.
That's right the foil I
we did it right when we grew up. Gosh darn it!
Look at that foil.
Newsstand, mind you. Newsstand foil.
Does it have a Mark Jeweler in it?
All you need to do is insert a Mark Jeweler.
Yeah. That's right. I'm just going to make my own. But yeah,
so
this was awesome.
You want to see better distribution, spinner racks, put them inside the grocery stores, all of that sort of stuff.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Right. Well, I'll piggyback off of that a little bit. And it was if you guys saw, like I put out a short the other week where I kind of went on a little bit of a rant about how I felt like Marvel and DC do nothing for the community, the comic book community. You don't see any sort of like stories about comic collectors or comic shops or documentaries or little content pieces or community events or, organized things. I mean, of course they go to San Diego Comic-Con. Of course they go to New York Comic-Con, but that's not them. That's them using some other organization's efforts to like piggyback off of that, or they'll like do store whatever. They'll piggyback off of other stuff. And I would like to see those two companies start to do more community outreach. And I think if they did that and they started to do even stories about their creators and the comic books that they have, and, did more like pieces about like, hey, what's Jason Aaron's comic book collection like? Does he collect comic books? What did he grow up reading? You know, and things about the stores and people that are in the hobby and all these little things. I think if they started doing more of that, I think that actually would have a immeasurable effect on people's interest in getting involved in the hobby. And that would lead to both like better vintage comic book collecting but then also like people picking up comic books off of like, you know, the new comic book shelf and starting to read and stuff. So I really think that would be a big thing that I'd like to see.
So what do you think the average cost of a commercial spot in front of a movie screening at a movie theater is?
If anyone would be qualified to answer this, I feel like it would be you, Swags.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not ever a department. Funny enough, I actually don't know what those types of things would cost.
I mean, let's assume $500. I think that would be a ridiculous amount, at least in my area. But you know, give every theater a
national or just like in your specific like county/region. It's like I have local businesses that advertise on. You know,
imagine a Marvel created. Is this where you're going with this?
Yeah, like if Marvel gave or Disney gave every theater a $500 rebate, say for the opening weekend of our Marvel movie, run a spot for your local comic shops. You know, multiple, if there are multiple in the area, just be like, hey, if you enjoy this movie, you can find our comic books, because yes, we all also sell comic books that this movie's loosely adapted from or based on the characters anyway. You can buy those comic books here. The worst thing that's going to happen is nobody's going to pay attention. The best thing that's going to happen is they're going to go and they're going to give you more money by buying your product from a comic shop.
Yeah. But and the human stories, like the reason why people are so invested in like UFC or boxing is just like the stories behind the people that do this stuff. Mm-hmm. And I really think that, imagine having a slot before every Marvel movie is like, oh, we're going to do this little quick 2-minute documentary about this comic shop that exists in this Texas area, you know, or whatever. Just a really nice piece that Marvel did and whatever. It's like, I think that stuff would be huge for the hobby.
And you see proactive shops that'll actually, they'll like rent the birthday room or something at the theater, you know, and they'll host like little parties to try and drum up their own business. But you know, that's them doing stuff that Marvel and DC should be doing.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like people do it, and the shops do it, and the shops do all the work, like setting up signings for artists. Like, you know, a comic shop will host whoever artist and be like, oh, they're here from blah, 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 blah. But it's like, I'd like to see a top-down effort in this part.
I like it.
All right, boys. Fantastic chat. Chat was amazing. Basically at 300 or over the entire evening on the old co-stream. So that's awesome. Knocked it out of the park. We kept up as best as we possibly could. I am sure we missed tons of stuff, but I think we hit the main talking points the chat was talking about. Let's just go, since we're co-streaming, let's just go around the horn here so everyone knows where to find everybody. Swag, we'll start off with you there, buddy. Sure.
Yeah. Thanks for hanging out tonight. It was great time. Thanks everyone in the chat. I got my YouTube channel, Swagglehaus, right here. If you're on Neo's stream right now, and you want to hear more comic book talk, you know, hop over and maybe you'll enjoy some of my videos. You know, some of it is CGC scam stuff, and then there's other stuff there too, which is not always scam stuff. And so hopefully you'll find something enjoyable to watch.
You know, if you're a viewer of mine, Swags and I have, I think I would say similar temperament. But we're covering different collectible spaces. We see eye to eye on a ton. We are very much aligned in our content styles, I would say.
I very much
like our charts and graphs.
Yeah.
We like to just sit down and have talks sometimes.
Yeah. And there's always a little bit of twang of sarcasm in every single delivery that we ever do.
Yeah. Drew, where can the fine folks find you, and what type of content are you pumping out there down there?
Well, my channel is Como Comic Books. My Instagram handle is here on my nameplate. That's at como.comic.books. I make comic book content. I'm also a comic book seller, vendor. I set up around the Midwest at different places. My content is generally me looking at a camera, reading a script about comic books I think are cool that you might think are cool. You might want to buy them. If you don't want to, that's cool. I don't care. I'm not going to tell anybody to buy anything, but I'm going to tell you what I think are fun books. And ultimately that's, I think, what we've lost a little bit in the hobby is, what's fun, what's enjoyable, beyond just what can we, ride to the moon and, retire early on. So that's what I like to focus on. So you can find me there. On live streams, I'm generally my personality comes through a little more. I'm a little more sarcastic, a little more funny, but I like, a little looser. I also like to throw in random movie references because I am a child of the 80s and 90s and everything since has sucked. So we're going to go back to the good times.
Get my
but I want to thank you guys for letting me hang out. Kind of popped in a little late and contributed nothing to the viewership since I didn't plug in, but
riding these,
I will gladly ride coattails from the Midwest to the West Coast anytime. So thanks for having me.
Wait, you're a scripter, huh? You script your stuff.
Oh man, I have no flow. Like my brain and my mouth are on different trajectories, and rarely do the two line up to where it's usable. So like my video. Oh, go ahead.
If I could compliment Drew, I will say, so, outside of me too, I do some writing for a living, but I think Drew is a better scripted writer than I am. I think your intro.
Thank you.
No,
your videos are great. I'm not. It's no knock.
You always have the best. Like your tales from like when you do the pre-code horror ones.
Oh yeah,
it's like right off the pages of an EC book.
I mean, I spent a lot of time watching that stuff as a child, so that's just how my brain works: is sick and twisted puns.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I always say there's
I appreciate that.
I make YouTube videos, not write a blog. The last thing I want to do is write. So. If I had to script a video, there would just never be a video posted.
I found it saved me so much time. Like, as long as it takes me to write the script, I'm saving double that and editing out all the ums, uhs, and me just raging into the camera at myself. Yeah.
It's like you don't English, script,
right? I don't script.
But I mean, like, here's what I want to talk about. But you're not like, okay. Yeah,
you like bullet point in your head. And I sometimes I'll think of a joke and I'm like, okay, if I remember to hit this joke, I'm going to hit this joke.
Mm-hmm.
Your little like intro thing that you probably have to obviously put some thought behind. You gotta figure out what prop you're going to stand around and stomp or if you're going to do a collector's corner or whatever. But
one day I'm going to be able to zip line from the ceiling.
There's got to be a way to do that in some sort of editing program somewhere.
Yeah, no, well,
I mean, if you can get a flamethrower, you can get some sort of a rig. It'll work out.
True.
Yeah. You literally spewed fire from a flamethrower. I think we could figure something out to get you to come down from the ceiling.
Yeah, and when you work in LA and film and stuff, there's always a guy. A guy is always one call away from whatever you need.
Yeah, you have to have that connection. For me, Neo Cards and Comics, YouTube, IG, the whole 9 yards. You can find me there. Mostly sports card content, non-sports card content, a lot of Marvel cards, stuff like that, and then delve into the comic content on occasion as well. So Swags and I have obviously teamed up multiple times for stuff. I think Como, me and you have been on multiple live streams together.
Yeah, the Illuminati days. Yeah.
I need to get you out too. I don't go to any Midwest shows, and we got to hook up. You got to get to a Heroes Con or something. That's the closest I probably get to your realm.
I've been to Heroes once before and I love it, and I haven't been back, but not for lack of wanting. That's one of the best shows.
I was last at that show. I've done 2 years in a row now.
That might be on my
list
for 2024.
That guy to come out.
Yeah,
and then Automatic.
I'm already planning on it.
Automatic's in the neighborhood, and he doesn't travel well. He likes his basement.
Yeah, he likes to be next to his water pipe.
Hey, listen, I don't mind. Yeah, I get not wanting to leave home, but
there are people out there.
They could be a little wild and crazy, but they're a good time. But my wife and I have an absolute blast at New York Comic Con, and that's like the biggest. You never know what the hell is going to happen. Sea of people in existence, and we have an absolute fantastic time. But Heroes Con, good. I like Heroes Con because it's like I am actually going to buy comic book con.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas New York is, and San Diego, I haven't been to San Diego, but I can imagine, is I am going for the pomp and circumstance, not necessarily to buy books.
And at Heroes, if you get bored, you can just go hang out at the NASCAR Hall of Fame down there.
Yeah, my wife and I did
It's
NASCAR
a smooth transition.
Yeah, it's right there. And there's great food options in and around the city as well.
Yeah, some good barbecue down there.
Yes, I've experienced some of it.
Sold.
Down there. Yeah, we got to get you out this year. I think it's in June typically, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's always Father's Day weekend, which is my hesitation. You know, aging parents, you never know when you might be on the last Father's Day. So
you know what it is, because I remember last year we drove back from Charlotte and went straight to my parents.
Mm-hmm.
We got up in the morning and I remember texting my mom saying, okay, we got on the road, because it's like 7 hours for me, I think.
My regional airport got a grant to get a direct flight to Charlotte in the near future. So if that actually pans out, hell with that, man. I'm coming in on Thursday and leaving Sunday late. Like, this is an event. We're not shortchanging it.
It was a good time. All right, if you're not following all the others on the live stream, pick whoever you're not subscribed or following and follow those people. This is weird.
I have the easiest job here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you just point out. That's true.
Yep.
All right, everybody have a great, happy, merry, whatever it is that you do, and we got a new year coming up, and who the hell knows what 2024 is going to bring us.
Hold on to your butts.
Lots of great transparent content.
Drama-free content, right?
Companies.
2024 is going to be the year of drama-free. Just charts and graphs and nothing else. All right, everybody. Catch you guys, boys and girls, on the next one.